Hello and welcome to episode 44 of Easy Talk. I am greeted today with our special guest, Junaid Munshi. Junaid, I actually met you through the fight game. You're like the backdoor physician slash active doctor for all of the fighters. You do at weigh-ins, you do all the physicals, the blood pressure checks, and all these things. And then after, or I guess I should say during the fights, you're kind of making sure that every fighter, if there is a knockout, TKO, what have you, is coherent, can answer questions, doesn't necessarily need to be sent to the hospital immediately. And then anything with like laceration, stitching, I can attest to both.
Yeah, man.
You take care of. So funny, the longest conversation I had with Junaid was after my Austin Bashi fight. We're in the back, and I was like, "Hey, can you like stitch up the 6 different cuts that I have?"
Yo, man, he did some gangster stuff. He was like, I don't want no lidocaine. Remember, you're like, I want to feel it. I remember that, man. I was like, all right, man.
Well, I just wanted to, you know what it was, dude? It was a combination of I wanted to get out of there. You know what I mean? And you guys were like, hey, we have it in the car. I was like, fuck it. Just
do it.
Let's do it. I want to get out of here. You know, it was so. And then, truth be told, I was riding, like, I wish I could sit here and tell you, like, I'm like this pain guy. I was riding such an adrenaline high.
Yeah,
I
you
barely
can't feel
felt
nothing,
anything.
man.
Yeah.
You can't feel nothing.
So maybe if you would have done it the next day, I'd be like, oh, hold up. But, like, while I'm still riding that wave, fuck it, let's go. But,
Yeah,
no,
absolutely.
thank you so much for taking care of me before and after
absolutely,
the fight.
man. No, it was a privilege. I was privileged to be a part of some of your fights and work the fights. And, you're a stand-up guy. Absolutely. Always professional. And the one thing that I did notice about you is that a lot of the fighters looked up to you, man. And you definitely were a good role model for them. So it's a pleasure to be here. I'm happy to do it, man. And thanks for doing this. This is great.
Dude, I appreciate that. Seriously. I tried to be someone that, I don't know, not to get too like sensitive and all that stuff, but I also wanted to be like the guy that I looked up to when I was like younger. I looked up to fighters, and I just wanted to make sure that at the very least, if they saw how I conducted myself, how I interacted with people, it was always a handshake with everyone. It was always a yes sir, no ma'am. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I think professionalism it's weird because it's head trauma and throwing shin bones at each other, but at the end of the day, it's still professional.
Absolutely, and that's the great thing about the fight game. Like you can talk a bunch of crap before the fight. You could be heated about it. You go into the ring wanting to pretty much smash your opponent, but afterwards you shake their hand, you give them respect, and that's how sometimes you got to handle stuff.
So when I had Tim Lukanoff on, he essentially said that for the state, when they sanction these fights, there's like a lot of people that are quote unquote like contractors with the state.
Yeah.
Like the doctors, some of the other state athletic commission members, and all these things. How do you land, like you and other doctors, what is your relationship to the State Athletic Commission? Are you employees? Are you contractors?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we're pretty employees of the state, so we do work for Tim. Tim's the only boss I got. In my private life and my private practice, I'm my own boss, so he's my only boss. So yes, we are contracted with the Missouri Office of Athletics, right? And so we pretty much work under them. So any of the fights which are sanctioned in the state of Missouri, right? Tim Lukanoff kind of is responsible for allocating who's working those fights, and then we work with them.
How did you get into touch with Tim? Was this like
something... man. So this started a long time ago. So I graduated residency. I was doing residency down in New Orleans, down at LSU. Started down there a little bit after Katrina. So it was a really cool experience being a part of that. The medical facilities and the network was just kind of reamping and kind of coming to. So it was really cool to be a part of that. So my wife, she's also a physician, and we both did residency together at the same program, but I was a little bit ahead of her. So I was working down in a clinic in Slidell, Louisiana, while she was finishing up. And, one day I was in clinic and a patient came in and he was wearing a top rank boxing jacket. And I'm a super fan of boxing, a super fan of MMA ever since I was a kid. And I always wanted to be a ringside doc, right? I'd watch TV. I'm like, how the hell did this guy get this job, man? Right? You can't go on Monster and type in a ringside physician and like it comes up, right? So you got to know somebody, or you got to do something, like you got to get your way in there. So I'm like, let me talk to this guy, right? So we start talking boxing, and I think there was a Chavez Jr. boxing fight coming up. So we're talking about him. And he started to ask me some questions about boxing. He was trying to feel me out. Like, is this guy just talking shit? Or does this guy really know what we're talking about, right? So I got it. So he was asking some questions. And I remember we basically finished the sentence the same, right? We're like, because I remember when Chavez Jr. fought Martinez, he knocked him down in the 12th round. He lost the fight, but he knocked him down in the 12th round. And we were like, knocked down in the 12th round. And then after that, he was like, all right, this guy knows what he's talking about, right? So I'm like, who do I got to talk to be a ringside doc? I always wanted to do it. And he looks at me and he goes, me. And I'm like, okay, right? So he's like, why don't you come down next week? I'm throwing a boxing gig. Come on down. I'll introduce you to the doc. I'll introduce you to everybody else, and we'll see how it goes. So I'm like amped up. I'm like, hell yeah, bro, this is gonna be great. I'm gonna sit ringside. I'm gonna be able to like at least like make some connections, shake some hands, and kind of see what I can do.
Networking with the best seat in the house.
That's it, baby. Right, that's it. So 2 days before the fight, he calls me up, and he's like, yo, the doc can't do it. Do you want to be the ring doc? I'm like, fuck yeah, I want to be the ring doc, right?
What was your position before then? Were you just coming to watch the fights?
I was just gonna come and just meet people and like
Gotcha.
feel it out, like kind of shadow, So I'm like, hell yeah. So I got off the phone and I'm like, yo, I got to figure out what I got to do, right? Because I've never been trained in ringside medicine. I'm a student of the sport, and I know the sport really well, better than most people for sure, right? And in training, you don't get trained ringside medicine like in medical school. Like the American Medical Association in the 1980s, their recommendation on boxing was you should ban it, right? So there's no thing. I've seen some head trauma in the ER and some concussions, and follow neurologists, but you don't get trained in this, right? So I'm like Googling stuff, like, I'm trying to figure out what to do. Barely found anything. I found some videos from
What year was this specifically? Like what?
This was in 2016.
Okay.
So I'm fresh out of residency. Like it's my first year as an attending, So I'm searching. I find some, YouTube videos from like, the amateur boxing, some guy from the 80s giving some speech. I'm like, man, this is crap, right? So I'm like, you know what? I'm confident. I know the sport. I'll do what I think you're supposed to do. I've seen these guys on TV, and, I did some research about concussions and lacerations and stuff like that, familiarize myself, and I went. So I went there. I did the fight. I did exactly what I thought you're supposed to do, right? And him and the commissioner, Jimbo, at that time, they come up to me, the guy, the promoter who kind of got me in, his name was Les Bonanno. So they came up to me after the fight, and they're like, man, you did awesome, dude. Like, the other guy's scared all the time, right? They're like, do you want to do this? I'm like, yeah, I want to do this. I've been trying to do this, right? So that's how it started. So then I went home, and I'm like, yo, who is this guy, right?
Can I ask you a question? Forgive me.
Yeah.
That night, like, what were some of the things that you did that kind of caught their eyes? Like, what was the big difference between you and the person that they had prior?
Well, I would say I didn't see that guy prior, but I would say in general, I took it seriously, right? I wasn't like, taking selfies with all the people in the crowd and taking selfies with all the fighters. I was very professional. We did, I sat there. I paid attention to every shot, every punch, everything, right? Like I'm laser focused.
So you're watching the fight almost like the judge kind of thing.
Yeah,
like you're judging damage.
Exactly. You got it. I'm looking, did that shot, did that cause something? Basically, right? Did it hurt that guy? How strong was it? Did he get concussed? Did his legs shake, right? What is his facial expression? What does his eyes look like? You know what I mean? Like really laser focused in. And then obviously after, I would go into the ring. I would check them out after the fight, check their pupils and just make sure they're okay. Go back to the back, check them out. And I kind of did like a thorough job, kind of what I do at Shamrock and other promotions, the UFC, Bellator. I've done pretty much all of them, right? So I did a pretty thorough job. And I think that caught their attention because I wasn't afraid or had that facial expression of, sitting there like making all these faces, right? Professional at it, and had a confidence, right? That shows fighters and everybody that this guy knows what's going on. So if somebody's hurt or somebody's injured, this guy knows, right? And if they're not, he knows, right? So I think that really kind of, was really impressive to them. And the other thing is that I know boxing, I know MMA, right? So when things are happening, when the matchups are going on, I kind of know what's going on, what to look for. This guy's coming in with a 4-0 record. He's fighting somebody who's 0-3. All right. You know what I'm saying? Or, this guy has fought a bunch of top guys. This guy hasn't, like stuff like that. I kind of know that knowledge. So that's kind of how it started, right? And after that, I mean, I took any and every fight. I'm telling you, man, I did
in the state of Louisiana.
In Louisiana, right?
Okay.
I even did midget boxing one time. You know what I'm saying? I was a doctor for midget boxing, right?
The most competitive of all boxing.
I was the only Indian guy within 50 square miles of that match, right? But I was like, hey, nothing is below me. I want to learn. I want to do what I can.
That is a poor choice of words. And midget boxing. Nothing below me, but all the competitors.
Yeah, all the competitors, right? Yeah. So that's how it started. And then luckily at that time, Regis Prograis, he's always top 10, 140-pound boxer. He's from New Orleans. After Katrina, he moved to Texas, right? So anyway, he trains with Derek Lewis. It's the same team out in Houston, and some of the Charlo brothers, right? So he was coming up the ranks at that time, and he's like, I want to fight in New Orleans. I want to fight in New Orleans, right? So anyway, luckily at that time, we started to get big fights down in Louisiana, with some top-ranked boxing, and things like that. So I got some experience in like at the higher level thing. And going back to Les, so I started researching who this guy is, right? I mean, I see pictures of Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson. He promoted for all these guys, right? So he knew everybody. He's an OG old guy. Rest his soul. He did pass away a few years ago. But, he really kind of was like, all right, man, come with me. Introduce me to the people that, that you need to know. Shake hands with the right people. Vouch for me. And really kind of say, hey, look, this is my guy. He's good. He knows what he's doing. And that kind of really opened up the doors for me. So I got to get respect to where it's due. Without him, I don't think I would have gotten the opportunity, especially in the beginning.
God bless.
So then then my wife finished up, and I came back.
She finished up.
She residency.
Oh, so both of you are doctors.
Yeah, we're both doctors.
Holla.
Yeah. So so I did some major fights. World Boxing Super Series. Semifinal, quarterfinal. So I got to do some big names, big guys. Right. Met a lot of good people. Top Rank Boxing. All the local shows down there, MMA and boxing. And then luckily I was able to make some right decisions in some big fights. So that kind of caught the attention of the Association of Ringside Physicians, some of the OG docs who have been doing this for 30 years. And, they were at Arturo Gotti and, they're doing all these, Muhammad Ali, all these iconic fights, right? There's some guys who have been in the game a long time. So that kind of caught their attention and I kind of got into that organization, right? And they have a certification program.
Forgive me if I'm interrupting you.
Yeah.
What year did you get into that organization?
I would say about 2 years after I started.
So 2016, you started doing
something
ringside
like
physician.
Something like that. Yeah.
And then 2018, 2019, that's when you got in.
That's what I got in, and then because I was researching guidelines and stuff like this, and that popped up finally.
May I ask? You said that you were doing your residency and you recently got it done. What are you forgive me.
What am I doing?
Yeah. What are you a doctor of?
Yeah, great question. So I'm trained in family medicine. Okay. Right now, I'm a partner and lead physician of Impact Physician Group. So we are our own physician group. Me and my brother-in-law, Dr. Husseini, basically are the lead guys in St. Louis. We're in about 9 hospitals, and we specialize in post-acute care facilities. What that means is that there's the inpatient rehab and long-term acute care. So basically, these are patients at rehabs, which we mainly do. If you've had a stroke, if you've had a traumatic brain injury, if you've been in a car accident, if you have a hip fracture, etc., you're done medically. You've had the surgery, you're done medically, but now you need a rehab for a couple weeks to get back on your feet. So we medically manage and optimize their medical management at those facilities so they can complete those programs.
Forgive me if I sound a little ignorant on this.
Cool.
I can understand rehabbing tissue, muscle, even like skeletal fractures or breaks, right? How do you rehab the brain?
Yeah, that's a good question, right? So I think with the brain, when healing the brain, time is what you need. Okay. But there's a lot of cognitive stuff, right? So we have speech therapists. Now, when people think of speech therapists, they think of swallowing, and stuff, which they do, but they do a lot of cognitive stuff. So they'll do memory stuff and they'll do cognitive things to try and get that brain re-engaged. You know what I'm saying? Get those neurons connecting again. So that's kind of what it entails with that type of therapy.
Would you say that it's all... This is going to be sounding very...
Go for it, man. Most people don't know.
When I had Evan Elder on, he was like, the brain's a muscle just like anything else. And I made the joke that, the brain's an organ. But there might be some truth to the thought of a brain as a muscle in the sense of when you're telling me that you're rehabbing it similar to, how you would rehab other parts of the body where instead of maybe, working on the flexibility or the strength of a muscle, you're working on the cognitive ability by trying to stimulate the brain and connect the neurons. Very similar in... application, different in theory, right? Because it's an organ versus a muscle.
Absolutely.
But when applying rehab, it seems to be very similar.
Absolutely. What any part of the body that's damaged, right? You need time for it to heal, right? And you have to do repetitive type of exercises, right? To strengthen the muscle, to strengthen your cognitive ability or whatever. So that's kind of what those programs are all about.
What do you do? This might be like a sensitive question. What do you do about, cognitive ability that is forever gone?
Yeah,
for instance,
that's
CTE
difficult. That's difficult, right? Those are very difficult things.
Because they're at 100.
Yeah.
And maybe after the surgery they're at 50, and there's no chance they're getting back to 100. Maybe we're just trying to get them to 75 or 80.
Well, I think it's trying to get them to the best that they can be.
Quality of life wise.
Exactly, right? There is going to be some acceptance, right? There is going to be an adjustment period. But you know what? Life goes on. And just because you've been injured or you've had some issue going on, that doesn't mean you can't feel love. That doesn't mean you can't feel happy. That doesn't mean you can't be productive. Yeah, maybe you can't do what you did before, but you got to try to help them redirect their life. And they can still do incredible things, right? but it's really accepting the fact, right? And making sure that you give them every chance that they have to get to the best of their ability.
When you first started studying medicine, when was it that you kind of aligned yourself with this path, like this role in medicine? I have I have a couple of friends that are doctors,
Yeah.
and some of them, like I have a friend who specifically treats children's cancer patients, right?
Okay, yeah, yeah.
And they went to that because they were like, my mom died of cancer. Their mom died of cancer, and
Sorry to hear that.
their first son died of cancer.
Yeah, yeah.
So like that was kind of like pushing them to that angle. So for you, you're more on the rehabilitation, both cognitively and physically. Like, why this line of medicine and
Yeah,
not
yeah.
something
Yeah,
else?
Well, I would say originally, right? I got sick and tired of working for these hospital companies, man. You know what I mean? They don't treat you good. They don't
Let's talk
want.
about that.
They don't want like. They don't want. They don't care how smart you are. They don't care how good you are.
When you say hospital companies, do you mean hospitals or the conglomeration of hospitals? Because a lot
conglomeration
of
of hospitals,
hospitals
you know?
are owned
Yeah.
by a company
It's like
that
these
owns
big-
multiple hospitals.
That's what I'm saying, right? So basically, it's corporate America in a hospital. Now, corporate America is about making money, right? So they're about making money, right? So, like for example, if somebody comes in and says, "Hey, Dr. Munshi, we have this new, protocol that you have to do X, Y, and Z," and I'm like, "Yo, this is bogus, bro. Like, this is not good for the patient." And then, but they want you to do it, right? You know what I'm saying? No explanation, no justification. And I'm the type of guy, like, I'm business oriented. My family's been in business for a long time. So when I hear stuff like that, I'm like, you just tell me that you're doing this because it's going to make more money. Don't give me this bullshit, right? You know what I'm saying? Like this made up bullshit that you're sending this guy to tell me to do it. Just tell me the truth, right?
You want
You know?
transparency.
Yeah, let me know what's going on
If
here,
this
man.
is business, just say it's
This
business.
is business, man. Stop making up all this bullshit, right?
Can I tell you some anecdotal evidence? When my mother was terminal, right? So
Yeah.
like she had been battling cancer for 10 years, and it was actually the radiation therapy that kind of got her a brain tumor. Anyway, when they told us, like they were like, "Hey, we've done all we could. She's got about a week left." She was at that point like sedated under morphine. Like
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
They were basically like, "Hey, we're just gonna let nature take its course," which is a very, at the time,
Yeah.
I don't want to say the word trauma, but like I remember,
Of course, man.
I remember
It's,
18-year-old
that's
Aaron was
hard to
like,
hear, bro.
"We're just gonna wait for my mom to die." Like
What the
it was
hell is
weird.
that?
But I'll say this: the day before we left the hospital, because they thought we were gonna stay in the hospital, and we're like, "Well, if she's gonna die, like we want her to
Go
die
home.
in her own bed. You know what I
Absolutely.
mean? We'll take care of her.
Yeah.
If just give us the morphine, we'll apply
We'll
it.
do it,
Like,
bro.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
tell us what we gotta do. Because at this
Yeah.
point, there's nothing we can do.
What are you gonna do now? You
So-
ain't gonna do shit, bro.
Once the hospital, and I want to refrain from saying the name of the hospital because
Yeah, I
they
get
did
it.
amazing work. They
Yeah.
gave me 8 more years with my mom, so I don't want to sound too harsh when I say this.
Yeah.
However, once they figured out that we wanted to take my mom away from the hospital and like have her pass in her own bed
Yeah.
at her own house,
Yeah.
they hit us with all these like, well, there's fluid buildup in her abdomen. We should probably take that out. And I was
Yeah.
like,
Okay.
we were
Like,
just like,
all right.
okay, because
Yeah.
my mom can't answer. She's
He's out of it, man.
incapacitated at this
Yeah,
point,
bro.
right?
Yeah.
So it's like me, my dad, my brother, and we're like, well, what do we do? Like, do we not do this stuff? What if she's in pain? What if we can't feel it? So we were like, I don't want to say the word guilt, but we were hyper.
It's hard, man.
Yes. So we're like, sure. They did like 3 different things before we left that hospital, and I didn't even think about it. Later on, when we got that bill, like that first thing, just to
man.
like suck out the fluid in her
$5
abdomen
grand
was
or
like
something.
$40,000. This other one was like $35,000.
It's
It was like an
crazy.
insane amount
Yeah,
of
yeah,
money.
yeah.
And I remember thinking this was like maybe we got the bill like 2 or 3 months after my mom died, right?
Yeah.
So
Like,
we did
what
the
the hell is this,
funeral.
man?
Everybody went home. What have you? We're situated in life. And I remember I went through this bill and I was like, 50% to 60% of this bill is like one day.
I know, man.
That specific day when we told
listen,
them,
I know, bro.
we're gonna get out of here. Like, give us all the paperwork we need. You know what I mean?
I know.
So I was thinking to myself, how much of that was necessary,
Yeah.
and how much of that was?
I'm gonna tell you something. You guys gonna be shocked. How many hours do you think I was trained on how to help somebody who's dying?
0.
Exactly. You know what it is, and I'm passionate about this. I gave a lecture at the end of my residency on this because I found it I was very passionate about this, right? Because I was like, you guys are just telling us what we can do, but at a point we can't do anything. And I saw in the hospital, like doctors are just like, they cannot have that conversation. They have no idea. It's crazy. In our country, right? The highest percent chance any American in their entire life to have surgery is in the last week of their life. Now just think about that for a second. Everybody's trying to hit a home run and you never even batted before, right? And there'll always be a doctor who walks in. And what I've noticed is the more specialized you are, and bless them because they do crazy stuff, right? There's some doctors that I train with, I'm like, I can't do that, man. There's no way in hell I can do that, right? Being in surgery for 8 hours, like, I got to go. I have 2 hours. I'm like, yo, I got to get out of here, right? But the thing is that the way that their brain function is that, okay, I got 100 patients that are going to die. If I save 20 of them, I'm a success, right? So sometimes
I would say even if you save one of them,
exactly,
that's
right?
a success.
So sometimes when we're having these conversations, you know, it may give that feeling to people that there's more of a chance than there actually is, right? And I went through this with my uncle myself, you know, 55, and he passed away in a major heart attack. And I was listening to these doctors, and then, you know, at one point I was like, he's done. He's going to pass away, man. Like, now
There's nothing we can do.
And the thing is that the question you got to ask is, are you prolonging life or are you delaying death? Right? That's the question, right? If you're prolonging life, go for it, right? But if you're just delaying death, then the thing what I've seen is that family members, loved ones, they're worried about, should we do this procedure? Should we do this surgery? Should we do this? Should we do that? But in reality, you should just be spending time with them at this point.
Yeah.
You should be loving them. You shouldn't be making them comfortable. You should be having those conversations. You should be asking those questions.
The last conversations.
Yes.
The most poignant ones.
The most important ones. And then they pass away, they're like, oh my God, I didn't even do that. You know what I mean? So that's what I've seen in medicine, you know, and it's just how it's geared and how it's trained. And, you know, I think with time, hopefully that'll change, right? But I would say for the most part, doctors are not good at having that talk.
Well, I will say this, you know, and I hope I don't never sound like I'm ungrateful or any of these things. First and foremost, you hit the nail on the head when you say there's a lot of doctors that get into like a specific niche, and they become specialists in this one particular surgery or one particular rehab or whatever medical care that they're giving. I firmly believe that if you're good at what you do, you should make money doing it. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
So like if you're, you know, a retina doctor and you're curing blindness, by all means, put whatever price tag you want on that
money, bro.
and let the market decide.
Yeah.
The only kind of annoyance that I have with the medical, with healthcare in this country is that it all seems like smoke and mirrors. It all seems like
that's why
you don't know what you're buying when you go in there. And if I just had the option of like, okay, let's say I break a leg, okay?
Yeah.
I want to be able to Google the same way I can Google the price tag on a restaurant's menu, or if I'm buying tires for my car, I can Google Firestone versus Dobbs. I can do some due diligence and say,
see what it is.
But any medical treatment, if I break my leg, whether I go to Mercy or Barnes Jewish or wherever, I don't know what the difference will be.
Let me give you an example, right? So when hepatitis C treatment came out, okay, it was $100,000 when it first came out
Per treatment.
For the treatment course, right?
Okay.
So you got Hep C. You want treatment? Somebody's paying $100,000. You're paying it. The insurance is paying it. Somebody's paying it.
That's the price tag.
They had a program. You could fly first class to Egypt, see the pyramids, see the Sphinx, 5-star hotel, get treatment, $10,000. You know what I'm saying?
The same treatment.
Same exact thing, $10,000.
Do you know how many people I know, all foreigners by the way, that whenever there's a specific I'll give you a very anecdotal and recent example.
Yeah.
There was a gentleman who had need for hernia surgery.
Sure.
And a bunch of Albanians knew that he needed hernia surgery, and he was very much stressing it because he didn't have health insurance. The Albanians told him the price of an airfare to go back to Albania. They knew a physician in Albania that would do it for $300 US.
Yeah, exactly.
So the guy bought the ticket, stayed in Albania for like 2 weeks, like by the sea, basically turned it into a vacation, had the surgery, did the 2 or 3 days of recovery just to be able to fly back. Cost him like all in all like $4,000.
Yeah.
He said that what he was getting quoted without insurance, now granted with insurance is a different price, but then we could get into the conversation of insurance. But without insurance, like hernia surgery here in the US was like $25,000.
Yeah, absolutely. The problem is that what happens is that like the hospital will send the bill to the insurance. They'll be like $50,000. Right?
Well, the insurance will negotiate.
The insurance will be like, we'll give you $30,000. Right? You know what I'm saying? They're like, all right, cool. You know? So if I get the same thing done as you, it might end up costing different.
Why is that a system that's like
it's crazy,
status quo though? Because, so like if
this is why because they all have lobbyists in Washington, man. That's why. That's the reason why. Okay? Fair. Because like you go in, let's say you're like,
but if you're an insurance company, I guess my question is more like I understand that aspect. Trust me, I do.
Yeah.
The corruption is not lost on me.
Yeah.
My question is more like if I'm an insurance company, And my goal is profitability.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact that there are other places in the world where this surgery is costing less. Now, granted, there's cost of living, what have you. I get that. But what I'm saying is, can't the insurance companies come back and be like, this is not $50,000? Like, at what point do we hold people accountable? Like, you say you're charging me $50,000 for this.
Yeah.
At what point do I say, no, I'm paying you $10,000, take it or leave it or sue me?
They'll say we ain't doing it. I mean, that's what'll happen. That's the problem, right? So it's the whole system like that, and all what we're talking about is why I was like, screw this, man. I'm gonna do my own thing. You know what I'm saying?
Do your own practice.
And luckily, we got our own practice, right? So,
God bless.
You know, and we've been very successful because we do a good job. We got a bunch of young guys who are good doctors who work hard. You know, and we really go into these facilities and really improve the medical care and the experience that the patients are having.
What's the name of your practice, if you don't mind me
Impact
asking?
Physician Group.
Impact
IPG.
Physician Group.
Yeah, yes, sir. So, and we bill, but we bill for like when you see the patient. We don't bill for the procedures. We don't bill for the labs. We don't do any of that. All we bill for is I saw you today. And
Here's
it's
the bill
it's
for
just a
today.
charge, right? It's just a charge. That's it. So the more people you see, the more money you make, right? We're not worried about, oh, if I order this test or if I do this procedure, then I'll get paid more. No, you just see the patient, do a good job, and then you get paid, right? So that's the reason why to come back is why I left and we started our own thing, right? Luckily, my brother-in-law, his brother-in-law is in Indiana, and they started this company. Like a couple guys, same thinking, right? They got a few locations in St. Louis. We started to work. We became partnered, became lead physicians, and we've been very successful over the past few years. We started with 2 facilities. We're at 9, you know? And we've been doing this for a couple of years, right? And it's if you do a good job and you're genuine, right, and you provide a better service than somebody else, then you're successful, you know. And because we're our own boss, we have our own hours, right? Where it's some more flexibility. We can spend time with patients, you know. We're not worried about all these things that these other places want you to do, which is doing nothing, is just wasting time and taking away from spending time with your family, right? Family and taking care of your patients, right? And, you know, we go in these facilities, we'll hire like a nurse practitioner to help us. So, you know, a lot of the busy work and a lot of the other stuff we can allocate to other people. So then we can actually do what a doctor's supposed to do. Treat the patient, talk to the patient.
You're kind of underselling it though, because you're always on.
I'm always on.
I never usually break the fourth wall like this,
Yeah.
but like you're the only guest that we allowed. Every guest I tell, please turn off your phone and put it on silent.
Yeah, for
but
sure.
what did you say? You're like, no, I need my phone on.
Yeah, because I'm like,
because someone might be calling
So, no.
me.
I'm on call 24/7.
Yeah, so you say that you have flexibility.
Yeah. Well, flexibility in the sense of when I can go to work, if I got to go pick up my daughter, if I got to go in late one day, if I got to leave early
You can
one day.
set the precedent, but at the very end, the buck stops with you.
The shit's got to get done, right?
Yeah.
But when and how it gets done is on my watch, right? And I work a lot, man. I'm going on a 60-day stretch working every day.
Jeremy Johnson said it best. He said, entrepreneurship is where you will work 60-hour weeks so you don't have to work 40-hour weeks.
That's correct. I mean, and that's what it is. Like, do you want to work for this guy? Do you want to be a part of the matrix, work 9 to 5, and do whatever? That's cool, right? And America is a great place for that because in a lot of other countries, like my family's from India originally, right? They don't even have that opportunity, right? But it's a great place that you can work a 9 to 5, have a good job, have a good family life, have savings, you know, have retirement, and that's fine, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, right? But you also, if you're not fit into that category, you know, sky's the limit. And a lot of people say that the American dream is dead. No, I don't think it's dead. I think the motivation is dying. I don't think that you can't go out and get it.
I can't agree more. I'll give you some anecdotal evidence, and this is something I don't necessarily like to say, but fuck it, because I'll say it. You know how, like, when COVID happened, like, a lot of people were saying, like, oh...
Trust me, I know. I was working, man.
more like the economics of it, right? I look to my right, I look to my left, and I see a lot of my friends hurting. Can I tell you, COVID was the best thing that's ever happened to me financially and for the legitimacy and trajectory of my life.
Me too, because once COVID hit, that was the last straw for me.
Yes!
That was it, man.
I told myself, I was like, what the fuck am I doing?
I'm out of here,
Like, why am I working so hard for someone else? I'll tell you what,
Yeah.
COVID taught me 2 things. One, I knew that I needed to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I knew I needed to do whatever it is that I wanted to do. Yeah. That being said, at the same time, though, I was fortunate enough to find a gentleman that I wanted to work for.
Yeah.
But then I worked for a much smaller company. So the 2 things I learned is I need to be an entrepreneur. I need to start my own thing. And 2, I will never in my life, no matter what the position, no matter what the pay, I will never work for a publicly traded company ever again.
Yeah, man.
I don't care if they give me CEO. I will never work for a publicly traded company.
I mean, this is what happened with me, right? So I'm working at the hospital, right? Okay. And then, you know, they're like, yo, we need doctors to cover the inpatient because we're overloaded. I'm like, hell yeah. But I have a clinic, right? So, like, I have to cancel clinic, right? Right? You can't work clinic. We're
Well, you can't be at two places
So
at once.
after all this happened, they're like, hey, you know, Dr. Munshi, you know, clinic numbers are down a little bit. So, you know, your salary next year will be a little bit lower. I'm like, yo, bro, you told me to go help you guys at the hospital. And now you're saying that I'm going to have a less salary? I'm like, you must be out of your mind,
you're
bro.
punishing me.
They're like, no. They're like, no. That was optional. I'm like, bro, are you
Go
kidding
fuck
me?
yourself.
That's what I
Go
said.
fuck yourself.
I'm like, then that was it. And I was like, I'm out of here, bro.
Good.
And then you know, there's some doctors which I look up to, right? You know, there's a lot of them in our community. As you know, Indians and Pakistanis, there's a lot of doctors, right? You know? So I remember one of the guys, he told me, you know, Junaid, when you work for these guys, right? It's like you have a pet bird. Okay, I had a pet bird growing up, right? Parrot. You bring him in, you put him in a cage. Every month you clip his wings. Don't fly. You don't have to fly. You have a nice cage. You got food here. You got water here. You don't want to go out there. It's dangerous, right? And then you don't even see this opportunity that's out there because you're just stuck in this freaking thing. You know what I'm saying?
This world that you know.
Yeah, that you know, all you know. And once I got out of it, I just thought, oh my God, holy crap, there's so much opportunity. I can easily make the same amount of money I was making working for these guys, but when you're working for them, you don't see that. You know what I'm saying?
Do you oftentimes, I'm going to ask you this, this is a pivot away from healthcare, more towards the business side. I get very annoyed whenever I hear people saying like, we deserve. I've always been of the mind that like, this is going to sound very bad. Like when people are talking about like minimum wage, I think to myself, what the fuck are we arguing about?
Yeah.
Like what are we really arguing about? What we're gonna mandate someone to pay? Like that's the market.
Yeah.
If I'm willing to pay you $10 an hour,
Yeah.
and you're willing to accept it, okay. And if you're not, and then you leave, and then someone else is willing to do it for $9, how can you tell me I have to artificially pay this person 15?
Yeah.
Now, I understand that micro, macro, different variables, especially when you talk about like illegal immigration, all these other things. So, in an ideal world, where your country consists of solely citizens, right?
Fair enough.
This kind of like legislation doesn't really make any sense. The market will kind of, the invisible hands will lead us to equilibrium eventually. There might be some learning pains on either side, but eventually. The thing that I dislike the most is you have a bunch of people that like are what I would call like employee minded. They don't necessarily want the stress.
They want to do the bare minimum and make the most amount of money.
Not even necessarily the bare minimum. Maybe they just don't want the stress of entrepreneurship. Because like, you know, it takes capital, it takes time. It's hard. Dude, entrepreneurship is hard.
It's hard as hell, man.
It would have been easier for you to chill back in the hospital and not start your own thing. But then you were like, you hit that point where you're like, you know what, fuck this.
That's
and then you took that leap. Now, nothing wrong for you to take that leap. Nothing wrong if you never took that leap.
Absolutely.
But what I dislike is there seems to be this like connotation that like people that go out there and like create something or build something from scratch are now like, I've heard the term, you know what I mean? Like you're taking advantage of, or you're taking from. And I'm like, dude, you guys are so out of your fucking minds.
Yeah, I agree, man.
I understand the mentality. But if you don't have the gumption, if you don't have the work ethic to start your own thing or to create something that you're bitching about, what the fuck are we talking about? No. How many times you hear someone say like, I deserve more, I'm not getting the promotion, okay, do it yourself.
That's right.
Do it yourself.
Yeah.
If you're really that hardworking, if you're really that smart, if you're all these things that you're saying and upper management and all these people aren't seeing it, then fucking do it yourself.
Go do
if
it,
you
bro.
don't, then shut the fuck
That's
up.
right, man. No,
shut up.
Look, and I take this inspiration from my family, right? Because my family came to this country in the early 1980s, right? Okay? My grandfather, my grandma, my late grandfather, and all their siblings, okay? They all came here with nothing, bro. Yeah. You know, absolutely nothing.
And
my dad
prior to Google. Yeah. So really nothing. You can't look shit up.
Barely can speak English, okay? My dad, fortunately, he had a engineering degree. He was in India, but, you know, we're Muslim. So in India, sometimes it's hard to find a job, right? It's discrimination and stuff. So he was working as like a draftsman in Saudi Arabia. You know what I'm saying?
It's a different world,
at
too,
that
with
time.
the caste system and everything, brother.
So anyway, they came over here. And listen, they're my whole family, thank God, they're very successful. But they work 7 days a week, just till recently. Like, you know what I'm saying? And they busted their ass every day to give us a better life, right? And we're very successful and reached the top.
When you say we, you mean the children.
The children.
Your brothers, your sisters.
Exactly, right? They came and worked every day. My dad's an engineer and a businessman. We've had hotels and 7-Eleven, typical thing, and restaurants and whatnot. My mom was.
Damn,
also,
brother, watch this.
It's all good, bro.
With a wink.
It's all good, bro. You know, you get that free Slurpee on 7-Eleven, bro. You know, and my mom was a businesswoman, right? I mean, she ran that convenience store her whole life, right? 30 years or something, and working multiple jobs, busting their ass. And went and got it is what I'm trying to say.
Did they ever bitch?
No, they never bitched once. They never said this is too hard. They never said, oh my God, I'm losing sleep. I never heard it once. All I saw was that they get up in the morning, they bust their ass, and basically by the time I was in 8th grade, 9th grade, you know, we kind of went to a different point, right? You know what I'm saying?
That's because they busted their ass.
They busted their ass that long.
That's the whole goal.
Exactly. Even my grandfather, right? He ended up getting a little hotel in Washington, Missouri. Was his own boss and was living a great life, you know? So, you know, I think that when come back to the minimum wage, there should be some minimum, right? I agree with that, right? But to say that we have to, and the market should dictate that. I don't think there should be this number.
I'm fine for legislation, but what I'm not fine with is like people trying to like artificially tell people what they're worth.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Why 15 when current EMTs, like emergency medical transport personnel, making $14.50 an hour? Where does this $15 an hour number?
Some boardroom?
It's an economical equation.
Yeah,
it's like what is needed to not live in poverty, essentially.
Exactly.
That's a great mentality.
Yeah.
But now you're forcing an entrepreneur, like you're forcing a business owner.
Small business get hurt.
A small business.
Yeah.
Thank you, because that's where I was going to lead with this.
Yeah.
The minimum wage can look at as like a way to kind of lift people out of poverty, but the problem with minimum wage is the same problem with inflation and printing money. It's a reaction to, not a pill for. So it's like you need to increase the minimum wage because the value of your dollar is not getting by anymore. Why? Because money is being printed. Why? Because Social Security and what have you.
Yeah.
But let's go back to the first end. So you need now more money. Fair. But if you charge more money for your labor, then everybody else is still going to work with the same operating margins, right? So like, okay, fine, you want double the pay, cool. Now I'm going to have to sell this product or service for more money because I don't want this to affect my profitability. So $15 an hour is great for the next 6 months.
Yeah.
And then when all the businesses, when all the sectors, when all the industries start to catch up with the new expense cost,
I know.
the prices will change. And then $15 an hour, if you recall, 5 years ago, they were talking about $12 an hour.
I know.
3 years later, $15 an hour. Dude, in 3 years, we're going to be talking about $20 an hour.
It's gonna hurt the guys who are trying to come up.
You can't artificially mandate the value of labor. The market does that. If you have no skills, if I could pick off anybody from the street to do what you do not be mad at me if they're willing to do it for cheaper. Yeah. Be mad at yourself for not having any skills.
Exactly, man. You gotta have a skill set. You got to bring some to the table.
And I'm not saying go to college.
Yeah, no, you don't have
Blue
to.
Collar, white collar, work is work.
But I get it, and I think a lot of these, this and that, it's just political, trying to get votes, and it is what it is. You know
I agree.
It is what it is, man. Because it's not going to affect them. It's like what I'm saying. The guys who are implementing, it's not going to affect them at all.
I just want to say something like there seems to be a correlation between successful people and this mindset of I can do better, and then who I would call losers, and these people that are thinking what can they do for me.
Yeah, no, exactly, and that's that's the mindset I'm in. Is like I'm not asking for anything. I'm gonna go get it.
Yes.
I'm gonna bust my ass. I'm gonna work every day, like I said, for 2 months, right? Be on call 24/7. You know what I'm saying? But I'm gonna go get it, and I'm gonna make something myself, and I'm gonna give it 100%. And if you do that in America, you'll be successful no matter what you do. But are you in that mindset? Are you willing? The problem is people are not willing to sacrifice stuff, right? You have to sacrifice something to do that. Yeah. You can't just do nothing and then like you're rich. You know what I'm trying to say? And even people, and I've heard in other podcasts like, oh, this guy and that guy, he's so rich and he did this. And well, yeah, he busted his ass. You don't know what he did for the past 20 years. No. You see him when he's at the top. What about this whole journey to get there? You're not talking about that. I'm sure he sacrificed a lot, even if he had a higher platform to start with.
I have never met a wealthy individual that I didn't think was intelligent, with the exception of like trust fund babies or inheritance wealth.
Yeah, sure.
But like if an individual built their wealth, it was always accommodated with two things. Either they had a strong work ethic. When I spoke to them, they were talking about their, schedule. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, brother, where do you find time to live, right?
Yeah.
Or it was an immense intelligence. I sat down, I talked with them. I was like, oh, this guy is sharp, or girl is sharp.
Yeah.
So I find that there's usually a correlation between mental aptitude and work ethic and success. regardless of the industry, regardless of what it is, and regardless of the gender.
Yeah, and the thing is that hard work...
Only in America.
Yeah, only in America.
Only in America.
And what I would say is that if somebody, let's say, is 20% smarter than you, then you got to work 20% harder.
40% harder.
Whatever, but you get...
2 to 1 because you're going to compete with them.
You get the drift, right?
I feel you.
So you got to bring something else, right? They may have a little bit of an advantage here, just like the fight game, right?
Yeah.
If somebody punches harder, well, you better figure out a game plan that you don't get hit, like, you know what I'm saying? Or you're going to take them down, right?
You said you knew about the fight game.
Yeah.
Do you mind me asking, did you ever train? Like,
Yeah. I mean, I did, not really. You know, basically, I did some boxing, a little bit. I'm not trying to say that I did much,
You're
right?
not saying that you're a fighter.
But like more for cardio. But then what I realized was that I like hitting people, but I don't like them hitting me. So then I was like, yo, screw this, bro. No, what happened was that one time I was training and I hurt my hand, right? And it didn't break or anything.
You hit so hard.
I hit so hard, bro. You know what I'm saying? I was trying to be Amir Khan. You know what I'm saying? It's like so I hurt my hand, and then like the whole next week at work, I'm like, bro, this is not good. Like, I can't type. You know what I'm saying? Like, I got to type all these notes. I'm like doing one of these, got a brace on. I'm like, yo, bro, it's not worth it, man. Like, you know, so then I was like, you know what? I'll do some light training and boxing and stuff like this, but I can't be doing this. Like, man, I got something else going on. And you know what I mean? I can't risk breaking my hand or something and then be screwed at work.
I will say this. I was very blessed throughout my, so like when I was an amateur, I waited to go pro after I graduated school. And I was blessed to have employers that were completely okay with the fighting, because there were times where I'm coming to work in a meeting and I have a black eye and everyone's like,
what the hell happened, bro?
What's going on with this guy? You know what I mean? So like I was blessed
for that minimum wage, bro.
Brother, I've been privileged. I don't want to say privileged. I've been fortunate with the lifestyle I've lived, the choices that I have made. I could have zigged instead of zagged, and we would not be here today. You know what I mean? And I'm sure same thing with you, right?
Yeah, bro.
So it is, in a weird, like, hippie way, it's a beautiful moment, because how many things had to have been done right for us to be here today?
Yeah, I mean, things just got to line up, and a lot of it's you got to do hard work, and you got to do what you got to do, and there's a little bit of luck at play, and sometimes destiny also is in the work.
I was going to ask you that. If you were to make a pie chart, because this might be a question I ask every guest now. If you were to make a pie chart of success between, like, work ethic, intelligence, luck, being at the right place at the right time, networking, like all these variables, what would your and hard work obviously is one of them, but like what would your pie chart look like?
You know, I think that I went to med school, right? So there's a lot of smart people. Okay. But those guys who are the top of the class, they're not necessarily the most successful doctors. When they get to the real world, they're like lost. You get what I'm saying?
It's a different world.
Intelligence will get you so far. Okay. You can get a degree, there's a high paying job, 9 to 5, and you're there, right? So intelligence does play a role. I'll give you that. That does have play a part in it. But I think the two things that I've noticed for me, okay, is that hard work does work, right? And being focused, man, right? Can you take your energy that you have, right? Can you channel that into accomplishing what you want to? Can you get all these distractions out? Like, there has been some people that I went to med school with, and it didn't work out for them, right? But the reason why was because something happened in their life.
It wasn't necessarily.
It wasn't because they weren't smart. It was because something happened that derailed their focus, and maybe it was more important at the time, right? But they got distracted, or they had to deal with something else, and it didn't work out, right? So I do think that, you have to be a little bit selfish on your rise to the top, and you have to make these sacrifices, and you have to work hard, and you can never give up, and intelligence plays a role. But for me, that's kind of what I learned, right? Like, I was always a smart kid, but I was not focused when I was young. I was all over the place, doing this, doing that, doing this, right?
Would you say focus? Would you also associate with discipline?
Yes,
you were disciplined.
Yeah, exactly. Fair enough. That's a better word for it. But discipline, though, I am trying to accomplish X, and I'm gonna do whatever the hell it takes, however many hours it is, whatever sacrifice I have to make. I'm gonna do it so I get to where I want to be. And the thing is that people are like, well, I don't want to give up this. I don't want to give up this. I want to do all this and still get that. That's not going to work. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's what it is. And what I've realized is a lot of times it has to do with social stuff, like your friends and family and things. But what I've learned is that you can be best friends with somebody and you don't see them for 10 years, and then you sit down and it's like you never even left. And the rest of the people, like, how many people,
I would agree only if you're still on the same socioeconomic plane.
Yeah.
Because I have friends like that, and everybody's successful. so everyone understands. Like, dude, I had a friend reach out to me 2 days ago talking about lunch. I hadn't talked to her in 6 months.
Yeah.
And she just randomly reached out. She's like, hey, thought about you today. You want to do lunch tomorrow? I was like, fuck yeah, let's go. Let's meet up. Haven't talked to her in 6 months. A catch-up lunch. What has happened in the last 6 months? Boom, boom, boom. What has happened to me? Boom, boom, boom. And then we just left feeling like, I was like, hey, next time I want to reach out. And she was like, Ariane, I get it. Because she's very high up in Wells Fargo. Yeah. She does very well for herself. She just got married. They're thinking about kids. She's like, I get it. She's like, I'm just happy that I thought about it. I reached out and you made time. And I was like, God bless.
Exactly.
But why does that work? Because she is limited in scope just as much as I am. Does that make sense? She's got her own shit going on.
Yeah.
If you have someone who has a lot of free time and they want you to supplement that free time, this doesn't work out. Because then they'll be like, oh, you know.
But I would have the argument that maybe they're not as good a friend as you thought, man.
I would agree.
Maybe they're not, right? You know, that's my take on it, because my core group of guys, like we've been rocking and rolling since the beginning, right? There's been people who've come in, who've gone out, you know, temporary type of situation.
All different walks of life.
But we're all still there. You know what I'm saying? We all got a group chat. We all chat.
Is this all like middle school, high school, like young friends, or like what are we talking about?
These are young childhood friends.
Yeah.
Man.
Okay,
so we got a crew,
that's
bro,
a throwback.
and we're doing good. Everyone's doing good and everything. But I think that there was a lot of people who I thought I'd be friends with forever, which I'm not. You know what I'm saying? And I think that a lot of times you'll get friends which are good for whatever phase in life you're in, right? And they're good for you at that point, right? But they may not be what are the best for you for the future, right? And then the ones who love you genuinely, who know you genuinely, like, you know, people sometimes they know you, but they don't know you, right? Like there are some people who know you, who love you, right? They'll be with you no matter what happens, right? But everybody else, you know, they may come and go. It doesn't mean that they're bad people or this or that, but maybe it just was a temporary type of situation, and they helped you get through whatever, right? And it was a mutual benefit. But if they're gonna hold you back, or if they're gonna be like, oh, you don't do this and you don't do that because you're doing what's best for you,
who's gonna
move on, bro?
Who's gonna complain?
You know.
I would agree with that. I do have like 2 or 3 friends from back in the day before
anything.
Ariane became Ariane.
They know you. They know you, man.
Yes.
They know you.
Yes, that's a good way to describe it. They know me, and you know, I would say that there's like 3 like circles, right? There's like the inner circle, my wife, my child, my father, my brother.
Yeah.
Then there's the outer circle, my in-laws. God bless.
Yeah, hell yeah.
But then like the child.
The best group.
Yeah, right. Love you all. Don't get mad at me. And then it's like the childhood friends are in there as well. The ones that knew me, like, you know.
Look, when shit hit the fans, who's showing up? That's what I say.
Can I be honest with you?
Yeah.
I'm gonna sound very toxic masculine when I say this. When shit that hits the fan, I don't fucking call anybody.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, if something shit hit the fan and you had to call somebody, those are the guys who like. Those who are the guys who I'd consider my boys. You know, what
I've been pleasantly surprised in my life for certain things, like my daughter's first birthday. Right, I invited a bunch of people from like back in the day. It was a 100% like acceptance rate. Like, of all the envelopes that we sent out, 100% of those guys were like, fuck yeah, dude. And it was almost like, not a high school reunion, but like a childhood reunion.
That's it.
What's everybody doing? How's everybody? Now I'm going to go to one of my buddies. He just had a daughter. We're going to go to their first birthday party. I haven't seen them since our first birthday party. But to kind of piggyback off your point is like, it can be done. It can be done.
It can.
And I think those relationships are truly special. Yeah. And you got to do everything you can to cultivate.
Your good friends need to be there for the moments.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Those moments, right? You know, everything else sometimes is just like passing time, man.
And if any of them did call me, like I operate under the mentality of like, there is no one I can call, figure it out yourself, pussy. That's how I think for myself.
No, for sure.
But if any of them called me, I'd be there in a heartbeat.
But yeah, exactly. And I'm saying like, not that maybe you need their help, but somebody passes away, you're going through a hard time, this or that. They show up, bro. They show up. They don't have to do anything, right? They just have to show up. That's what I'm saying.
I agree 100% with what you're saying.
And then some people, they ain't going to show up, man. Like, they're not, right? So why are you going to let that guy bring you down?
Yeah, I don't think I would. I also, you know, like I said, I sent like 5 invitations. That gives you like a context of how many people, like, I'm 31 years old and how many invites I sent out? 5.
Yeah.
But I do operate under the mentality of quality over quantity in all aspects of life.
Yeah. I mean, quantity is college. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I mean? That when you're young, right?
Or
you have a bunch of friends and work, and you're there, this and that, or whatever, right? But what I consider a true friend is those moments in life when you need somebody, when people need to be there, they show up, and that's my litmus test for that.
I want to forgive me. I loved this rabbit hole that we went down.
Hell yeah, yeah.
It was good.
Yeah.
But terribly sorry to interrupt the content that you're enjoying right now. But if you've been watching our content for the past couple of months, you realize that Easy Talk is a brand new podcast. We're genuinely trying to figure this thing out as we're going. Some growing pains for sure. If you are genuinely enjoying this content, we feel very humble in that, but we would like to ask that you would also subscribe and like to the channel, simply because it does help us in the algorithms and ultimately to grow. So take a second. I'd really appreciate it. And on with the show. So I want to take a step back because we kind of went down a couple rabbit holes.
Yeah, we did. It was good, man. Good combos.
Like I told you when the cameras weren't rolling, I want to do a good job of setting the stage of who you are, because we were talking, and there's a lot of people that may have seen you. There's a lot of people that may, shake your hand, get a physical from you, what have you, but they don't really know you, your background, why you're there, how much you care. You know what I mean? So a lot of this podcast is also to kind of just illuminate people to you, the individual.
Yeah, absolutely, brother.
But let's take it back now to the current, right? The way I met you was through Shamrock FC.
Yeah.
And specifically, the acts that I see you do are at weigh-ins. You're there to do the pre-fight physical.
Yeah.
You're there to check my blood pressure and all these other things. I have a good story about it. One time, my opponent was behind me, and you were checking my blood pressure, and you're like, "Hey, your blood pressure is kind of high." I was like, "Yeah, because the guy that I just spent the last 3 months training for is right behind me." And you giggled. You're like, "Ah, you're good."
Yeah, I'm like, all right.
But you do the pre-fight. You obviously take care of the fighters post and during. And what I mean by during is like, after every fight, you're one of the first guys in the cage to check on both fighters. Win, lose, or draw, even if it's a decision, you check the eyes, you check all these things. And then post, obviously, like I said, with my anecdotal story, the lacerations, what have you. So can you just briefly describe what it is that you do for Shamrock or other promotions? I know you did Bellator and UFC.
Yeah.
And then what is the weight in terms of for you?
So let's start with the pre-fight physical.
Yes.
That's typically where it starts, okay? Now, I'll just kind of quickly go through the physical, and people may be like, what is this guy doing, right? But I'll just go through quickly of what I do and what information I'm gathering, right? The guy sits down. The first thing I do is get a set of vitals, right? We put a pulse ox on. When you put a pulse ox on, right away, I know if this guy smokes or not. Okay, if it's 100%, he's not a smoker. If it's read 97, he's a smoker.
When you say smoker, you mean like cigarettes?
Tobacco, weed, something. He's smoking something, bro. Okay, you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So what does that tell me as a doc? I'm like, well, he's probably going to come on the first round, have a lot of gas. Second, third round, he's going to slow down. That's what tells me right away,
because
right?
the oxygen levels in the blood?
He's going to go down. He's going to come out. He's going to come out with the blast, but he's going to slow down, right?
No shit.
Okay. The second thing is I have your pulse. Okay. If your pulse and your blood pressure, right? So if somebody comes in and their blood pressure is low and their pulse is high, he cut too much weight. Why? His blood pressure is low because his body is depleted of fluid. The heart is compensated by increasing the heart rate. What does that tell me? Well, let's see how well he rehydrates. But if he doesn't rehydrate well, he's not going to perform at his top the next day.
Wow.
Okay? If the blood pressure is high, there's a systolic blood pressure. This is when the heart is squeezing. And there's a diastolic when it's relaxing. Okay? You got that, right? So if your diastolic blood pressure is high, there's something wrong. Okay? There's something wrong.
When you say something is wrong,
that means either he has underlying hypertension, diabetes, high cholesterol,
like some sort of pre-existing condition.
Something's going on, right? When your systolic blood pressure is high and your diastolic is normal, that could mean you're nervous.
Okay.
That could mean, you know what I'm saying, that you're anxious, right?
Yeah, because when I give you my thing, you giggled. You're like, you're good, brother.
And I did a whole research on this whole thing, right? And what we found, okay, most recommendations for the Olympics, for us, the ARP, everybody, 160 over 90, as long as they're below that, you're good to go. Okay? And that's factoring in all this stuff.
Forgive me because I'm ignorant to this. What is the 160 over 90? Like, what is 160? What is 90?
Yeah,
what
160 is that systolic blood pressure.
Closed.
Right? And then diastolic is opening. So if you think about it, right? If you're nervous, your heart is doing this, right? So then that's why that pressure is high, right? Makes sense?
The numerator, the 160.
At the top. But if your heart is relaxing, why is it high? That means there's some resistance.
Oh, so that lower number.
There you go. So if somebody comes in and their bottom is 100, you're like, uh-oh, something's going on here. This is not just because he's nervous or something.
What is like an ideal? Because I've heard things like, it's notorious in the UFC that like, what's his name? He's a commentator now. Michael Bisping, forgive me. Yeah. Michael Bisping was like notoriously known for like a low
heart rate.
Yeah.
So the lowest heart rate I've seen is elite fighters. It can be as low as 35.
What does that mean? Like with low heart rate?
That means that your heart is efficient. That means that when it pumps, boy, that blood is flowing through the body, and it doesn't need to keep pumping hard, or you know what I'm saying? It's just it's pumping good, brother, right? So that's another thing with the pulse, right? If somebody's pulse is low, right, that means that he did good conditioning. What does that tell me? Well, if it's a 5-round fight, he'll be all right in the 5th round, right? The other guy comes in, he's bumping 90, everything else is normal. Well, maybe he's nervous, maybe he's not that his conditioning is not that great, right? So just within the first 2 minutes, that's what I already got information I got. People don't know that, right? But that's a lot of information that I just figured out on how the fight might go, right? Then we move on, right? I check your eyes. Why is that important? Well, I need to know how your pupils are reacting, because if you go into the cage, you get a concussion or something happens, it might slow down. So right away, I'm like, yo, man, at the weigh-in, it was like this, and now it's doing this. Maybe there's something going on, right? I check your reflexes to see, well, how fast is his reflexes? Sometimes I'll take the pen and do this, but then I'll do one of these, and I'm just seeing how fast are your reflexes, right? You see what I'm saying? Obviously.
Are you taking into consideration, though, that when you're doing these pre-fight physicals, that they're also weight cutting?
I know that.
Okay,
listen,
fair.
I've seen weight cutting at the highest degree, right? Yeah. So I know it's about the important thing is, can this guy rehydrate? For example, okay, I've seen the UFC we did a study with the UFC, right? And it showed that the more weight you cut, the higher winning percentage you have in the UFC.
The more weight you cut,
yeah, right?
The better your
But
weight.
They got a whole team, man, who's telling them what to do, right? If you come to
talking about a nutritionist, dietitian,
maybe a doctor, and they got all the stuff that you need, man. They're just telling you, do this, do this, do this, and you're just doing it. And there's a team around you monitoring you, right? Okay? The local guys, they don't have that. They're Googling something, or who knows what they're doing. You know what I'm saying?
Some of them aren't even doing that.
They're not even doing it, right?
Some of them are just listening to a coach.
If you and to think about it, right? If you put too much sugar in your coffee, what happens? It goes to the bottom, right? So just because you drink a bunch of water doesn't mean that you're going to rehydrate. You're going to piss it out, right? So there's ways and techniques. It's a science, right? That how you rehydrate, right?
I don't know if you know who Jordan Dowdy is, but if you want to talk about someone who understands the rehydration, I've never seen anybody locally do it better than him. Yeah, fair enough. He's not even a dietitian. He's none of these things. He talked to the UFC PI. He works with Sean Woodson. He's in Sean Woodson's corner, and he's been doing it. He was doing my post weigh-in meals for like the last 6 fights.
You got it.
And it was like some of the, I say weird because I'm ignorant, right?
Yeah.
Magnesium blend, quinoa and grass-fed beef for this, and drink this first, then eat this, then drink that. Here's the dessert at the end to spike the insulin, so that you can, what have you. Yeah. And meanwhile, I'm just like, bro, I used to fucking go to Chipotle after weigh-ins, when I was an amateur. Like, ooh, I can eat, you know what I mean?
No, but I think one tip that I did learn at the elite level is that when you are cutting weight, right? Take a dried pineapple or fruit and put it in your mouth. Okay?
Dry?
Just like, frozen.
Frozen, okay.
Put it in your mouth. Okay? When you do that, you're going to get some glucose, all right? And it's going to stimulate and make your body feel like it can go down to like a metabolic, where we can start breaking stuff down, right? That's just a tip. But there's a whole science to this, right?
Oh, yeah.
And people take it really far. So whenever somebody is in the UFC, all right, or, top rank boxing or something, right? And they're dehydrated away, and I'm like, yeah, but he has like 5 people who are going to tell him what to do, right? Sorry about that.
Do your thing.
You know what I'm saying? Oh. When we're at,
forgive us, guys, but this is the one guess where that's going to be the thing.
When there's a local guy, I'm a little bit more concerned, right? Because he doesn't have those resources, right? Yeah. But I do take it into consideration, right?
Have you ever done like a dual physical, like a physical after weigh-ins, and then you're like, okay, I want to see you before the fight tomorrow? Have you ever done anything like that?
Yeah, I have done that, yeah.
Because maybe...
If let's say the guy's blood pressure's high, right? And let's say his diastolic is normal, but the top one is above 160, right? I'm not the type of guy that's be like, you're done, bro. Like, you can't fight. I'll be like, what I say, I'll be like, yo, go to the bathroom or go lay down, just chill out for a little bit and come back. Then I'll check it again, right? Still high, but like, listen, man, just rehydrate tomorrow morning before the fight. I'll check it again. So if there's somebody, I give every opportunity for a fighter to compete. Okay. I'm not looking to try to stop a fight. I'm not looking to disqualify somebody. No, that's not my role, and I don't want to do that. I want to make sure that you meet the requirements by the state. You know what I'm saying?
To do it safely.
You meet the main requirements, and the requirements are not that, crazy. You know what I'm saying? They're very reasonable, right? So if I'm telling somebody you can't fight, you really shouldn't be fighting. I'm not that type of guy. And there's only been a few people my whole career that I didn't clear.
10 years now, roughly.
Yeah, exactly. There's only been a few people, right? And that was because the guy's blood pressure was 200. Like, I mean, you can't fight. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Have you ever had these physicals and like you told a fighter to like go see a doctor after this? Like you were talking about how sometimes you can tell by the physical, like there might be some underlying condition there. You know what I
there
mean?
has been. There has been. So a lot of people, they might have borderline blood pressure issues, right?
Okay.
And I'd be like, you're good to fight, bro, right? You're fine. But you should see a doctor because it probably shouldn't be this high.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Go get some blood work done.
Yeah, go get checked out, and you got to go get checked, right? You know what I'm saying?
You know what's crazy? Some of these guys, you know, because obviously fighting is attracting a demographic of people. Let me put it this way: if you took the average golfer, and you saw their annual income, and you took the average fighter and saw their annual income, you're not going to have a Venn diagram there.
No,
right?
I know that a lot of
maybe
times,
this physical is like the first time they
that's
see
what I'm
a
saying.
doctor.
A lot of times, I'm probably the only doctor that these guys are seeing. That's the truth, right?
Yeah.
And fortunately, that's a good thing. I mean, it's not a good thing that they haven't seen other doctors, but hey, at least that you're seeing somebody, right? So I'm not going to be the one who's going to treat you chronically, but if I notice something that needs a little bit more investigation, then I'll be like, hey, yo, bro, you need to go check out my guy. You know what I'm saying? Or whatever. Or if people get injured, you know, one of my good boys is an orthopedic doctor. You know, they got their own crew. I send everybody who gets injured to him. He's going to take care of you. He's the orthopedic Dr. Nawaz. He's the orthopedic doctor for Cardinals, all the main guys. So we got a relationship with him. So any of our guys get hurt, we send them over there, and they'll take care of them, right? So we'll plug them in where they need to go. We'll make sure that they're taken care of, you know. Even after the fights, like, you can hit me up, man. You know, text me, call me, hit me up, whatever, bro. I'm not.
I gotta say that too, because you came to my work after you did my stitches and took my stitches off at work.
So
dude, God bless. Thank you.
I do this because I love it, man. I love the sport. I want to be a part of the sport. I want to make the sport better. That's why I do this, right? I'm not like, oh, I need an extra $20 because of behavior or something, bro. Trust me, that's not the reason why I do this. You know what I'm saying?
It's a passion.
Yeah, it's a passion. It's something that keeps the fire going, right? You know, I've always been a part of exciting things my whole life, right? And this is the one thing, you know, you're at work all week, you're this and that, you know, Saturday's coming, like, all right, bro, fight night. You know what I'm saying? I get pumped up, lights are on, music's playing, fights going on. You get that rush, you feel alive again, right? So for me, that's what that fulfills, right? And hey, you know, it's cool because it's like a job too, right? So it's the best of both worlds.
You get to do what you love.
You get to do what you love, right?
In
and
an
I know
awesome
that
place.
I can't do that every day. There's not a fight every day, right? You know what I'm saying? So I still got to do what I do, make a living, provide for my family. But hey, I got this thing going on, which hopefully one day, maybe, you know, if I become super successful and when I'm older, maybe I don't have to do this. And maybe I can just focus on this type of stuff, right? Because I love it, right? So
just doing the stuff that you solely want to do.
Exactly, right? So, you know, that's kind of why I'm in this game. But back to like the physical, right? So there's a lot of information I get within 5 minutes, right? You don't have to do this long physical, right? You need to do what needs to be checked, do it fast, do it efficiently, don't make it hard on the fighter, get the information you need and get them out, right? And that's how I always do it, right? Another important thing about all this is the balance, right? People are like, this guy's making me do my balance. So what is he checking, right? Well, okay. On the form, it says, have you been knocked out in the past 30 days? All right? I've never
Who's
seen
going to put yes?
Who the hell? I'm not stupid, bro. Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, this is whatever.
Some hard sparring rounds.
They're like, the hell? They're like, no, doc, I'm straight. Like, what happened to your eye, bro? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Fell down some steps.
Like, oh, yeah, you know? So I know that, you know, people are not writing everything on there, bro, okay? I'm not dumb, right? But balance being off is a sign of a concussion, right? So I'm checking, is this guy off a little bit, right? So I'm checking those like red flag things, right?
Have you ever seen somebody come in with concussed?
Luckily, I have not.
Not yet.
Luckily, I have not. There's been a few where I was like, you know what I'm saying? But there hasn't been anybody that was like, holy crap, like this guy
brother, you're hurt,
fight, right?
Get out of here.
Yeah, but there's times where I'm like, you know what I'm saying? Like, not really sure, right? But I'm like, all right, we'll keep a close eye on him, right? Obviously, I check all your joints, make sure everything's okay. But within a few minutes, right, I can understand the general health of this person, how their weight cut went, right, how they're going to perform when it comes to their cardiovascular system, right? And I already know, like, kind of how this fight might go. I look at his opponent. The other thing people don't know is I research. I'm like, yo, this guy's fighting this guy. His record is this. This guy's record is this. Oh, shit. This guy's 4-0. This guy's 1-6. Okay. At the physical, this guy cut weight. Oh, okay. You know what I'm saying? So I already know all this stuff before the fight comes. People don't know that, right? So I know your physical health. I know who you're fighting. I know your record. You know what I'm saying? And most of these guys I know now, right? I've been doing this for a while in Missouri, right? And I've done a lot of fights. If you look at my record, I've done over 100 events.
Jesus.
And I would say I'm probably... in the whole country, there's probably 10 guys who are as active as me. And I got to give thanks to Tim and the commission for that, to give me the opportunity. to do that.
Because they're giving you
Yeah,
the
because
work.
if I've done, let's say I've done 100 events, right? Let's say there's 10 fights per round. That's 1,000 fights. Let's say there's 3 rounds average. So I've seen probably 3,000 rounds of mixed martial arts.
Where you were specifically the ringside physician.
Yeah, pre-op. I mean, the pre-fight physical, sitting there afterwards. That's a lot of experience, plus whatever I watch on TV, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I just want to do more and more and more. Not because I want to sit there in the front, is because like I'm really learning this sport, and we're doing a lot of research with our organization. I'm doing research, right? And we're not doctors, as a ringside physician. I'm not going to say, hey guys, boxing and MMA is the safest sport in the world, right? That's not true. I mean, it is what it is, right? But that doesn't mean that you can't come out with things which make it safer without affecting the sport, without making it dull. There's going to be some common sense things that you come to conclusion with, and a doctor who's never seen a boxing match in person, who's never seen an MMA, what does he know? I mean, he's gonna be like, "Oh, head trauma."
Well, he's gonna say that all of this, like you were saying,
this is bad.
why are we doing any of this?
You shouldn't do that, right? So so they don't know. Okay, they may do some studies about traumatic brain injury. They may look at people afterwards. The problem is when you have a concussion, right? Then like one of the symptoms is you don't know what happened. You have memory loss, right? So what happens? You wake up, you're like looking around, right?
I've seen some knockouts
Yeah,
where guys have lost like 12 to 20 hours of their life.
So then you're going to go see this doctor, right? This neurologist or whoever, right? You're telling them some made up story that you picked from your friends and people who were there. And then the guy's like, I don't know, you don't have no symptoms. I mean, you're probably okay. Does he know that you had a concussion? No. But going back to concussions, I think that's a really important topic, right?
Well, okay. I want to take a step back because there's an onion here.
Yeah.
I want to talk about. I'm going to ask this question first.
Yeah, sure.
I've, in my experience, but then I want to also take it back how you even got to Missouri before we go.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this question first.
Let me. I gotta make this.
I've seen. Oh, dude.
Yeah.
Strategic break there. I'm going to input something. But okay, so the question I have for you is, I have seen in my day, dude. I mean, flash KOs, like where the guy goes black for a second and then he's back in sparring. You know what I mean? I've seen concussions where the guy's been rocked and I've had to be like, hey, your eyes went to the back of your head for a second. Let's get you out of here.
Yeah.
I've also seen knockouts where, I mean, stiff.
Yeah. See, it's a seizure caused by a concussion.
So the 5 seconds of stiffness, followed by the relaxation, followed by the what the hell just happened, followed by the 8 to 20 hours of what the hell just happened in my life.
Yeah.
And the worst ones I've ever seen are the comatose, where like you're essentially shutting the brain off while the muscles are still receiving.
Yeah.
So my question is, before we get to the topic of when you got to Missouri, what is like from the hierarchy of worst to least worst?
Okay. So first you need to understand what the hell it is, right? Because people don't even know, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to explain
There's fighters who have never heard the term comatose.
So I'm going to explain this very layman's term. This is not a scientific definition, okay? But just so people understand, okay? Basically, you have a skull. Your brain is inside your skull, and there's fluid in there, okay? So your brain can move in the skull. It's not like a tight fit, okay? So think about an egg yolk in an egg, okay? The egg yolk is the brain. The white stuff is the fluid, okay? So anything that can cause, right, your brain to move and hit the skull can potentially cause a concussion, okay?
Which is
in our world,
short-term brain damage.
Yeah. So in our world, not necessarily. In our world, right, that happens a lot when you get hit to the head, right? Obviously, your brain's going to shift. It can also happen if you fall down and hit your head, right? It can also happen if you have like a whiplash action, right? So even if you get hit into if you get hit to the body and you do this really quick, that could potentially cause a concussion. Now, what happens after that, okay, is that some of your brain cells can be damaged, okay, and that can cause some chemical disruptions, all right, and that could potentially lead to a concussion. The thing about concussions is if you get an MRI or CT scan, it's not going to show a concussion. So that's the tricky part, okay? There's no blood test.
Why not?
Because it's not going to show it. Only thing that
it's not advanced enough to see it?
No, exactly. It's very subtle. Because if you're having brain cells damage, how are you going to pick that up on a scan?
Yeah.
You're going to pick it up, right? Now, if you have a bleed or something, like a subdural hematoma or something, right, and you see a bunch of blood, obviously that's going to come on the scan.
And that's bleeding from the brain.
Yeah, so that's like...
That's an immense damage.
That's different, because most people who have died in combat sports have been due to a subdural hematoma. And that's because you got hit so hard that something busted open and started bleeding,
Jesus
right?
Christ.
So, but all these concussions, you go to the doctor, you go to CT scan, they're like, everything looks good, man, you're good to go, right? So So if you have a concussion, you may present with some symptoms, okay? And if you have those symptoms, that's how you get your diagnosis, right? So when people ask me, how do you know? How do you know? Well, I know because X, Y, and Z. Some of the symptoms you can have, we'll start from the top down.
Okay.
Loss of consciousness, okay? Obviously, self-explanatory.
I shouldn't be laughing.
Right? But yes, you got to knock that fuck out.
Chances are,
chances are, you had a concussion. Okay, no, doc, I remember everything. He's like, no, you don't, bro.
Except for the shot that hit you.
It's like, okay, you could be foggy, all right? So what I would explain about being foggy or have this glass look is just imagine you go wake somebody up in the middle of the night, you shake them up, you're like, yo, you start asking them questions. They're like, what? You know, they kind of, you know what I'm saying?
Cognitively, they're there, but
like,
they're not there.
They're not there yet. They're like, what's going on, bro? Right? So they kind of have that look on them. Make sense? Okay. You could have a headache, right? You could be nauseous. You could be vomiting, right? You could have some vision changes. You could be irritable. You could be having trouble sleeping. Okay. Your balance can be off, as you know, right?
I had one buddy who got knocked out and then had to go take a shit, which was
That's
like the weirdest.
That's probably a different problem.
Okay. I remember I was worried that he was gonna like vomit, and he's like, I gotta go to the bathroom. I go, oh, throw up. He's like, no, I got to shit. I go,
he had something that's called a vasovagal response, right? But it's still different. Or they get the.
It was just a weird one. I was like, that's a first.
They can have balance issues, right? You know, somebody gets hit, they start doing the stanky leg in the middle of the ring. I mean, that's probably concussion, right? So you cannot diagnose a concussion.
You wouldn't say that that's like because I want to be careful.
Yeah.
There have to be levels of concussions.
So I'm getting there, right?
Okay.
So that's what it is, okay? So these are the symptoms that could potentially happen if you had a concussion. Just because you got hit in the head doesn't mean you get a concussion, right? If you got hit in the head and then you start experiencing these symptoms, that's what a concussion is.
It could be a concussion.
Right? Some people think this concussion is like this crazy thing that never happens. It happens very often, right? Now, yes, there's different levels, right? Now, it's very difficult to categorize different levels, but I think that the severity of a concussion, in my opinion, right, is how long do those symptoms stick around, okay? If you get knocked, it looks bad, you're out of it, you're a little dizzy, you know what I'm saying, you come to, and 5 minutes later, everything is gone, okay, it's probably not that bad of a concussion, right? But if you go home and you're still having the same symptom, that's not good, you know? I've seen concussions that, like, for example, I've seen a couple. One was a cheerleader. She got kicked in the head, right? She had symptoms for 6 months.
Jesus Christ.
One guy was in a car accident 1 year.
Whiplash?
Yeah, whiplash. He hit his head on the steering wheel, right? One girl had like 4 or 5 concussions in her life. They never went away, okay?
What do you mean they never went away? The symptoms have never gone away?
Never gone away.
So that's brain damage. It's not a concussion anymore.
But what I'm saying is that this, so let me get to that, right? So that's what it could be, okay? Now, what is very dangerous, okay, is what they call second impact syndrome, okay? Now, just imagine your thumb, and you take a hammer and you freaking bash it, right? You're going to be like, oh, my God, right? Okay? Your thumb swells up, is bruising, all right? And then the next day you hit it again. It's going to be immense pain, a lot of damage, right? So the trick is this. If you have a concussion, most of the time, it's going to be okay, all right? But if you have a concussion and it does not heal and you get another one, that could be very dangerous. And a lot of those people who have died in the ring, what we find out, we're like, he didn't even get hit that hard, right? You know what I'm trying to say? You're like, oh, what? How did he die, right? They're like, and then you talk and they're like, yo, man, last week he was sparring and he got knocked the fuck out. So we're like, oh, shit, bro. This guy had a concussion. He didn't tell us. Physically, maybe he didn't have symptoms of balance issues, pupils, but maybe he had a headache. Maybe he was nauseous. Maybe he was irritable.
The brain was just
maybe he wasn't sleeping, right? And then that's happened. So what I tell all fighters, right, is that concussions happen. They're going to happen, right? And most of the time, they're fine. The people who get in trouble is they have multiple concussions throughout their career, and that goes with fighting style. You look at somebody like Floyd Mayweather, right? He probably will be okay. He didn't take – there's like 2 times in his career that he was like in the ring, right? But you look at Muhammad Ali. The way that he fought, it was not that he didn't get hit. He got hit a lot. And we see what happened there, right? You see what I'm trying to say? So that plays a big role in it, in allowing that rest to occur, right? What I say to everybody is that if you have a concussion, don't go out drinking. Don't go partying that night, okay? Go home, right? Take it easy. That doesn't mean go in your bedroom.
Dude,
Yeah.
that's
But
a subtle thing because
I
I
know.
know every fighter that does an after party, win, lose, or draw.
I know.
I know I do.
I know.
I don't think there's ever been a fight
I know.
that I've had ever since I was 21 and older, because I started fighting when I was 19, but ever since I was 21 and older, I don't think I've ever had a fight, even the ones I've won, where I've been hit.
Yeah.
We go out and drink it. Dude, sometimes we do fucking benders the night after.
That's what I'm saying. So that's not a good idea, right? If you had a concussion, right? If you didn't have a concussion, do whatever you want, right? But what I'm saying is if you did, and I tell you, bro, you had a concussion, right? And I don't just say that, right? I mean, I'm sure you've noticed. I don't just tell people stuff like overly cautiously, right? I'll tell you when I'm like,
no, you're
confident,
chill. You're chill in the back.
So what I'd say is like, that doesn't mean go into a dark room like they used to say and put a cover over your head and don't talk. No, just like think of it as a weekend. All your friends are busy. You're just going to chill out at home, and relax, right? You get what I'm saying? That's what I mean by that. And then you can go back to aerobic, activity or cardiovascular activity light, right? So go for a jog in a couple of days, go for a bike ride, maybe do a little weight training, nothing too intense, right? And then if you don't have symptoms, then you just slowly start increasing the intensity of that workout. If you have symptoms, stop. Don't do that anymore. Go talk to somebody, right? And I said, tell everybody, do not spar for 30 days, bro.
Yeah.
Do not do that because that what I just talked about.
Not even light sparring.
Don't even do shit. Don't do nothing that you're going to hit your head. Just like I said with a second impact syndrome, because it's not worth it, right? I mean, if you just wait 30 days, like you're not even going to fight. You're already suspended from the commission, so it's not like you're fighting.
Do you think 30 days is enough?
Some people it is, some people it's not, right? It depends, right? Like I said, it really depends. But I would say that
how difficult is that for you to determine, man?
No, it's not. It's not. Okay.
It's not?
No. If somebody, let's say that somebody fought like 10-round fight, let's say, okay, and like they got rocked 3-4 times, and then the last round they got laid out. I'm like, this guy needs to not do it for 90 days.
6 months.
You know what I'm saying? 90 days at least, right? If somebody just got flash knocked down, like 30 days, you know what I'm trying to say? And if somebody's in the middle,
I've had fights where I've won, where it went black for a second from a shot.
Yeah, absolutely, right? So I think there's, depending on how much damage they took, right, and how their symptoms are presenting afterwards, I can tell, right? Now, that's just because of experience, right? I'm not using some mathematical formula or something.
What you've seen prior to what you're seeing now.
I've seen people, right? And I follow people, right? So I've seen different types of concussions or different levels of concussions and how the symptoms were in the long run.
Does the athleticism of the individual have any part to play? Like if someone's like, this is going to sound super like meathead, but like if someone's jacked, ripped, versus if someone's kind of like pudgy, does anything have to do, like the longevity and the strength of the brain have anything to do with the training they're going?
So there was a study that was done that looked at every single boxing death from 1724 to 2019.
Jesus.
There was 2,077 deaths in boxing male competitions.
From
1724 to 2019.
You're talking about almost
300 years or something. Yes. So
I'm gonna be that guy.
Yeah.
2000 doesn't sound like a bad number.
Yeah. So yeah, it's about 6 or 7. If you do the math,
We're talking about people throwing fists at faces.
7 a year, something like that. Okay.
And by the way, God bless for everybody. Like, forgive me. You know what I mean? But in this sport, in this line of work, doesn't sound that bad.
Yeah. So the percentage wise is low, right, of deaths, right? So
thank God.
But going back to that, one thing that we found out from that study was fighters who were 126 pounds or less had a higher percent chance of that happening. And we were like, what? Because most of the time you're like heavyweight, you're thinking Rocky and Drago, how Rocky, big guy punches you, lights out, and you're dead, right? That's what people think, right? Like that.
Based on what you were saying earlier, the second shot.
Yes.
Heavyweights knock each other out.
Okay, you got it, bro. You got it. So if the heavyweight hits you, you're going down, bro, and you ain't getting up. But the lighter fighter at 127, right? So what I'm thinking is that he has enough power to give you a concussion, but not enough to knock you out. So now you're staying in the fight, and then you get another one, and you get another one, and then bam, lights out, right? So that was pretty interesting. So it doesn't seem like if you have a bad concussion, it seems like the more repetitive concussions in a short period is more worrisome than a big shot that lights out.
That's also, like anecdotally, you can see it in evidence because who is the average age, of a weight class? The average age for the oldest age is actually heavyweight. Why? They say that the power is the last thing to leave. Based on this conversation, I think it's probably the longevity of being a heavyweight.
Yeah.
If you're getting slept with the first shot, obviously that's not a good thing. I'm
Yeah.
not saying that it is.
Yeah.
But at least you're not getting multiple concussions in the fight. It was a one and done kind of situation.
Exactly.
And then you're taking the 3 months you need to afterwards, then getting back into training or whatever. Maybe, you're good to go. Whereas the lighter weights, like you were saying, I know for a fact there have been times where guys have rocked me. They just didn't hit me hard enough to put me away.
That's correct. And you can still fight.
Yes. I like I was saying, I've had fights where I've heard the ding, meaning like they hit me like on the temple and
like zing,
and my ear on the side wherever they hit me, ding.
Tinnitus is what it's called. Yeah.
And it's like 30 seconds. And I'm like, ooh. And I always thought to myself, like, okay, can't let them hit me on that side again because they'll probably put me away. And then I've also had ones where like, something as simple as like a check 3 that kind of touches me on the jaw.
Yeah.
I'm talking about like I lose half of a second.
Yeah.
Like everything went black, and then I'm back there.
And that's like what I said. It's like a rotational force. So when you your chin, but when you get hit in the chin, you have a rapid movement like this, right?
Yes.
And then you have more of a surface area that's hitting your skull than if you get hit from the front.
I know for a fact I have CTE. I just think it's very mild because of the way I fight.
So I would say that unfortunately right now. It's very difficult to diagnose CTE.
I'm sure.
Because the only way you can do is you look at the brain after the guy dies. That's the only way you know.
have to cut it open?
You got to cut it open, right?
To see the damage in the brain cells?
Yes, that's correct, right? But what I will say is that CTE is pretty severe, okay? And people do develop a lot of what we would consider like anxiety, depression, aggression, a lot of these like psych type of.
Oh no!
So I don't think you have CTE. I would say that you've probably had some concussions and you've had some symptoms, but
so when you
CTE is a lot of behavioral stuff that you see later on.
Oh no!
Like suicidal.
Oh no, nothing like that.
A lot of stuff. A lot of guys with CTE have unfortunately killed themselves. You know what I'm saying? So, so I think that.
What is it about CTE that would cause that? You're talking about the
your brain,
cell damage, then the hormonal imbalance.
I think it's just repetitive brain injury, right?
Okay.
Over time,
okay,
disrupting normal functionality of the brain.
So then that would lead to. I'm trying to understand. Okay, the normal functionality of the brain.
Let me give you an example, right? And like I said, we don't know, right? You know what I'm trying to say? Like we don't know.
Duly noted, but
right?
you're much more intelligent on this topic than I am.
My thought on CT is this: is that, for example, if you have anxiety or depression or something like that, right? A lot of times there's a chemical imbalance. Right? And they give you medicine to try to balance it out, right?
Hormonal.
Yeah, exactly, right? So I think these guys are developing CTE. Maybe this damage is causing some imbalance over time that now cannot be corrected, and now it's exhibiting these type of symptoms. Right? Does it make sense?
CTE...
But it's definitely people who have had repetitive concussions throughout their life. It's not they had one and they got CTE, right?
So then when you hear people talking about like memory fog or like cognitive ability reduction, is that not a symptom of CTE?
So it can be, right?
Okay.
But what I'm saying is that are these symptoms permanent now?
Okay.
Like, are they permanent? That's not going away now. Maybe. This is a permanent, now your brain has been changed permanently, right? Not temporarily, not for a month, not every other month. Like we're saying, this is the baseline now.
That's so hard to depict though, because I feel like me and Evan Elder have conversations all the time, and whenever we have like brain fog, we're like, CTE. We joke around. Yeah. Maybe we're like underlying, like maybe we don't have CTE.
No, I don't think so, but bro. Maybe, you would not be this smart and having this conversation if you had CTE. I don't think so. No, I don't think so. They're messed up, man. Like it's pretty bad. Like I've seen some stuff and we've had some stories, right? I'm sure it'd be okay to share this, but one of our colleagues, she's a ringside physician, and her husband was a fighter, and he had CTE, and he killed himself. And she's a ringside physician still, because she wants to make the sport safer, right? And when you hear her story, you don't have CTE, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like this is like serious stuff. Like this is.
Will you tell me her name after this?
Yeah, absolutely.
I would love to have a podcast with her.
Yeah, she's great, man. She's great. Does
she live here in the St. Louis
area? No, she doesn't. But I think she'd be happy to do something.
Okay.
She's actually going over to Saudi Arabia actually for the second women MMA fight. She's going to be the doctor for one of the PFL guys. But anyway, long story short, this is CTE is something that will develop over time when you're older. after repetitive damage that has happened. There's still more, but the problem is you don't know unless you cut the brain open, right? So it's just like, does he have it? Does he not have it? Who freaking knows?
Well, here's the thing that me and Evan have spoken is like, so I only, it's a compare and contrast that I can't do. And I've said it before, it's like, I know how my body feels from my life's work of fighting.
Yeah.
I know my aches, I know my bruises.
Yeah.
But how much of that is just age?
Yeah,
how much of that is me being 31 instead of 21?
Yeah.
I don't know what I would feel like had I not done this.
Yeah.
So like we joke like, oh, you know, CTE is a hell of a drug kind of thing.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know if like, maybe I don't have any cognitive.
I doubt it. I don't think so. I mean, in your fighting style, you strike. You were a striker, but you were, you know, grappler.
Oh, I was, dude. I was all of it.
You know, but what I say is that the guys who get this are like just boom, boom. They're, you know what I'm saying? Their head is knocking back. They're taking big shots all the time.
But I'll
you know
tell
what
you
I'm saying?
this though. I'll tell you this.
That's not you.
Maybe a factor. Yeah, but maybe a factor you're not taking in though is I'll tell you this right now. The amount of damage that I've taken in the cage, if I were to do like a percentage, is like 1.5% of the entirety of the damage that I've taken. And this is my concern when it comes to fighters.
Yeah.
I've seen guys get fucked up in training. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, yes, in terms of like what the state is in charge of, like what you're looking for, and that one given night, dude, I know that I've put more miles on my body Monday through Friday than I ever did Saturday night.
That's true. That is true. That's true because a lot of these injuries happen in training, right?
Yes.
A lot of these concussions happen in training, right? A lot of this stuff happens in training. You're only there for, 15, 20, whatever, you know what I'm saying, you're fighting.
Dude, I've never had a big injury from fighting other than like lacerations.
And I think that's why it's really important that gyms, right? And I'll be happy to do this, right? But like you have to, the coaches, the trainers, the fighters, they just need to know the basic shit, man. Like you don't need to know the whole physio, you don't need to know all that. You just need to know the basic stuff and when you got to talk to somebody. That's all. You know what I'm saying?
I just think you need a coach that cares.
Yeah, that's true. And that knows, right?
A good coach.
How many times have you said, "Oh, I got my bell rung"? Well, you probably had a concussion,
dude,
bro. Like,
can I tell you something? I used to run fighter sparring every Wednesday at Finney's. And some of the fighters would get very upset with me. I would run it and I would participate in it.
Yeah.
So like when I wasn't in the rounds, I was watching every round. And some of the fighters would get so upset with me because like I would see a hook or I would see an uppercut that they didn't see coming, turn their fucking head. And I go, okay, round's over.
Yeah.
What do you mean I'm good? You get the fuck out of the cage.
That's what I'm trying to say.
I said round's over.
Yeah.
I don't need to see more.
And that's good because like you're training, bro.
Yes.
This is not the real fight.
I want you to go hard.
Yeah.
I want you to get a sense for the speed and the
But
pace and the damage.
We're not coming here to get hurt.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. It's like
Smart.
how do I peak the application while also diminishing the damage? It's so hard.
And there's no ringside dog at sparring.
No.
There's nobody there.
Dude,
like, you know what I mean?
I'm not a physician.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going off what I've seen prior.
You know what's crazy? Like Khabib, Islam, the whole Dagestan crew, right? Obviously, they're freaking good.
Dude,
okay?
and
they're killing it, right? Did you know that Khabib's father did not allow them to take any shots to the head until over 18?
I agree with that.
See what I'm saying?
I agree
because
with
that makes sense. You're like, they worked on grappling,
dude, honestly,
whatever,
I'd say 22.
Yeah, I think like your brain is fully developed in your 20s, right? But what I'm saying is that when you're like young, right? I'm not saying that you shouldn't spar or something like this, but once again, right? It's like if you think that the guy got hit really hard, right? And you're sparring, like you shouldn't just let it. You see these videos, they're like, I'm like, what are you, this guy? What are they letting him do, man? Like this is the sparring.
You know what I would also say? I would even go a step further. Is like when you start sparring. If I was a coach, if I ever get to the point where I do decide to own my own gym, which is a monumental task. I would never let newcomers spar newcomers. I would only let newcomers spar people that I know
so they can
handle themselves. Because I want them to get the benefits of sparring, but not each other and turn it into war. Because have you ever seen two guys that don't know what the fuck they're doing? Yes, it's an ego trip.
Like all offense, no defense. Right?
But if you're in there with a guy that's a killer, these guys will start tapering themselves. And you see it all the time. I've seen guys, like, it's like white belts rolling with white belts. They're going for dumb shit. The second you put a white belt in with a black belt, they're just like, okay, don't die.
Don't die. Exactly.
So that's kind of what I want that sparring to feel like. Hey, work on the defense first. Work on preserving your own life before you start trying to take somebody else's.
So that's very interesting, right? So another thing that we did a study on, or we've researched, is the role of headgear.
When you say we,
so
and we're spreading around this conversation.
Yeah. So I don't talk for. I'm not here to talk as the ARP or something. I'm a member. I'm on the exec board, but there's a lot of other physicians who have done research, and we have statements that we've put out. So one of the statements is regarding headgear. Okay, right? And long story short, we found that does nothing to protect you from a concussion.
I think it would be worse.
Yeah, in some instances it was worse.
Makes your target bigger.
Yeah, and the people feel more protected.
Oh,
People
so they're going even
taking
harder.
More chances, right? You got to say, like, I think that I don't know the statistic, but I think there's more concussions in football than rugby, for example, right?
Can I tell you one piece of anecdotal evidence?
Yeah.
I had 5 amateur boxing fights before I went pro.
Yeah.
And I had to wear headgear all 5 times. I never sparred with headgear ever in my career in MMA because I didn't believe in it.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I want to be able to like move with the punches. I want to be able to dissipate a lot of the damage.
Yeah.
The only time I've ever had headaches after a fight was my 4th amateur boxing fight. Me and this guy went to fucking war. And I remember I won a decision. I maybe hit him 250 times and he hit me 240.
Yeah.
I mean, we stood in the center and fucking
Just
threw,
at,
right?
Boom, 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 yeah.
The next day was the only time in my life I had this. I couldn't, like, I needed to close the blinds in my room.
Yeah.
The light
and that's
gave me like not a headache, like debilitated me.
That's a sign that's definitely a sign of a concussion.
100%.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say is I've done 10 years of MMA, amateur and
Nothing
pro.
like that happened then.
16-2 cumulative record.
Yeah.
Not a fucking issue. And by the way, for 14 of those fights, we were going on benders afterwards, right?
Yeah.
Yet the one amateur fight that I have at 20 years old, I can't do anything the next day, and I won. I don't even know what the other guy felt.
Yeah, no, exactly, right? So there's a lot
wearing
of
headgear in amateur boxing.
So there's a lot of misconceptions, right? You know what I'm saying? Or a lot of things that people think are making it safer, or they're thinking this didn't happen or that happened. All I can say is that I love MMA. I love boxing. I'm passionate about it. And in no way, shape, or form is my role to try to decrease the sport, right?
Yeah.
But like I said, if you're gonna do this, right, you got to do it the right way. And there's gonna be some red flag things, which are like, bro, you just gotta take a chill pill right now and come back tomorrow. You know what I mean?
I'm gonna ask you the same question I asked Tim though, because like for me, I got into fighting not because I was trying to preserve my body.
Sure.
One of the quotes I always had was, "I'm here for a good time, not a long one." Now, that quote's kind of changed a little bit.
Yeah.
But like, how monumental and how impossible is this task of preserving oneself, who's literally going in there for full-blown combat with another human being?
I think so. This is what it is. Okay? Now, I'm not saying we should do this, but the less rounds you fight, the less chance you have of getting hurt, right? I mean, it's just math, right? You understand what I'm saying? So I think that has something to do with it.
Rounds or time?
So what I would say is your ring age, right? When I say by ring age, is that you have your age, right? But when did you start boxing? When did you start MMA? How many times have you sparred? How many fights have you had? That's what I'm talking about.
So you're talking about the cumulative career.
Yes, right. So I think that's why I think that you should do competitive sparring for sure because you need to train. But at the same time, don't waste what you got getting hurt in sparring.
Would you recommend? This is what I recommend.
Yeah.
One day a week.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know 1 day, 2. I don't know because I don't train like that, so I don't know. Fair. I can't talk on that. But what I can say is that save that for what you're when you got a real fight, right? Okay. The other thing I can say is that the guys who are defensive oriented, who can block shots, who can get out of the way of shots, who are picking their shots, right? They'll probably have a longer longevity just because they're not going to take as much damage, right?
Themselves.
You know what I'm trying to say? The guy who is a crowd favorite, who's getting pop, 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 pop. It's exciting. You sell tickets. Everybody loves it. But, in the long run, that's probably going to be worse off than a guy who may have a little bit more of a reserve style, which is punching when he can punch and not getting hit. If you, like I said, in boxing or MMA, you got to be able to take it, right? But if you can avoid getting hit as much as possible, right, that's what's going to preserve at the end of the day, right? So it's a matter of finding that balance, right? Obviously, you're going to get hit. Obviously, you'll probably have a concussion. Yeah, okay. But do you have that fighting style where this is going to happen again and again and again and again and again and again, right? And if you have that style, that doesn't mean you can't win. That doesn't mean you can't make money. But you have to understand that, hey, look, there's a risk involved in doing this, right? And that's up to you, right? People are like, oh, this is risky. Yeah, but look, firefighters have a big risk. Police officers have a big risk. Coal miners have big risk. I mean, a lot of professions have a risk. Look, you can tell a firefighter don't go in the burning house. It's too much of a risk. Let's stay out here with the hose. No, let's give them the right equipment. Let's make sure we have the right pressure of water or whatever. Let's give them the support. Let's give them the training, right? Do all this stuff, right? So you have to provide
setting them up for success versus just leaving them to their own devices.
Exactly, right? So if you got all the skills, you got all the training, You've been educated on what you need to look out for, right? You know these things. You get a concussion, you take a break. Don't do anything for a month. Okay, you know what I'm saying? Just take it easy, right? That's how you're gonna be okay. But if you're like, nah, man, I'm good, bro. You know what I'm saying? And you're not, right? And then something happens, then there may be a point where it doesn't get better, right?
I can't tell you how many fighters have gotten mad at me because I'm like, you're done for the day.
No, but that's the right thing
They're
to
like,
do.
what do you mean I'm done for the day? I'm like,
Yeah.
you got hit
Yeah.
in a way
and look,
where you're done
and
for
even
the day.
in the ring, right? There's been times where I have to stop a fight, okay? And like the guy's like, no, and I'm like, yeah, go ahead, man. Just
Meaning you got called into the ring.
But what I'm trying to say is that I let them be upset and whatever. I know everybody's watching. You gotta look like a tough guy, but rarely when you go to the back is there a big fight.
No.
They're like, all right, man, I get it, bro. But I understand it. You have to, I get it, right? You know what I mean? So you just gotta, and that's what happens. A lot of times when I do that, I go in, I do what I got to, and I walk right out. Because I know, you know what I'm saying? It is what it is.
I'll tell you this. After my last fight,
Yeah.
it was the first time that I've ever been stopped, right?
Yeah.
And Mike England, rest in peace,
Yeah.
he came up to me. He's like, I'm so sorry for having to stop that fight. And I was like, what are you apologizing for, Mike? I was like, I'm sorry for putting you in a position where you had to stop a fight.
Yeah.
I always looked at it as like my fault. Why are you the ring side physician, or why
Yeah.
are you the referee getting involved in this? I should have done a better job of making sure that you never had to.
Yeah, and look, our jobs as the physician or the referees is we have to save a fighter from themselves. Okay, when your adrenaline is pumping and you're hitting somebody in the head and they're hitting you, your judgment is gonna be off a little bit, man. Like that's just our instinctual nature, right? That's that flight or fight kind of response, right?
I felt superhuman.
How many times have you gotten like so heated and then like 5 minutes later, like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. I was like, oh, I should have said that.
Well,
you know what I mean? So
I never interacted in a way with any professional in an
I'm just saying
manner.
in life. You know what I'm
No,
saying?
but
you know
no,
what I mean, right?
it makes sense because, like, dude, I felt superhuman in there. I had so
Yeah.
much adrenaline pumping in me.
Yeah.
I didn't feel a fucking
man.
thing. I felt like a
Nothing.
tank.
Exactly.
So, like, I get it. I've been in there. Luckily for me, I've been in there enough to where I can understand. Some guys may have not, but for me personally, anecdotally, I get it.
It's a sweet science. Learn it, do it, train hard, have good fights, be competitive, take calculated risk. You know what I'm saying? And just make sure that the red flag stuff, you're not trying to mess with that, right? If you don't get hurt, if you didn't have this or that, it's okay. You know what I'm saying? But there will be times when stuff happens, right? And at those times, you just got to make sure you take it seriously and do what you're supposed to do. That's all. And then that's how you can have a healthy career, how you can have longevity and not get in trouble.
So before I ask you about moving to Missouri,
Yeah.
have you guys ever done any sort of research on the chin? So like kind of separate from brain damage or the brain's health is a lot of times we talk about, that guy's chin went away.
Yeah, so I don't know if there's exactly research, but anyway, long story short, from my understanding, and I could be wrong, but like I said, this stuff is hard to study, right? 'Cause what are you gonna do? But it's basically sending some shockwave that's kind of disrupting everything from your head down, right? You get what I'm saying? And your nerves are like electrical wires. Think of it like that, right? So if the light is off, I mean, the problem could be there, the problem could be here, it could be at the switch, right? But something is disrupting that pathway and then causing that light to go out.
So when you hear people say like, "Oh, he's losing his chin," is that not necessarily?
So
like,
I don't know. Like and
I don't know if that's brain damage.
So I don't know, right? And that's a good thing. Like
Or
people are
maybe
saying, like he lost his
age?
chin is getting weaker or whatever, right? I don't know if you get hit in the chin more and more that you're more chance of getting knocked out, but I think people figured out to hit him there. You know what I mean? I think that's what actually happened. There may be some component, but I don't know. Like I asked a question to one of the docs about being choked out. They're like, if you get choked out again and again, do you get choked out easier? And they're like, no, right? So I don't know if there's been specific research on the chin and the if you ever increased risk.
So let me actually ask this question in a different way because to your point about the correlation of my question is not necessarily like the repetitive nature of the action.
Yeah.
It's more okay. So there are fighters who do the jawser and neck cranks in boxing specifically to strengthen the jaw muscles and the neck.
Okay.
Because there's some science that says the stronger the neck, the stronger the jaw,
So,
the
here we
more
go.
ability to get
Absorb.
impact.
Yeah, so I would
And that's the variable impact.
Yeah, so I would say this, right? Remember we talked about the brain inside the skull.
Yes.
So if your neck and everything supporting it is stronger, there may be less force to move it around, right?
Less
you get what
pull.
I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Just because you got a strong neck doesn't mean that it's going to stop it. But if you, just like anything, if your neck, you're going to be able to kind of take that impact without you doing like this or whatever. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
No, it absolutely
does.
does.
I'm sure there is, right? I'm sure there is, but I don't think there's any study that's doing that. Now, back to this stuff that we're doing right now as we speak, right? I'm currently involved in a research project, and we're trying to identify what would make somebody potentially high risk, right? We've looked at 4,000 articles. We did a literature search at Johns Hopkins University. We got 12 doctors researching for the past year. It's probably going to take 2 years to finish, but we are dissecting 4,000 articles right now that are related to all this type of stuff and trying to see if we
CTE, fighter deaths.
Yeah, so we're trying to see what are some things that are would make somebody high risk. Like we have some findings. I've done my own research, right? And I came up with some criteria that from my research and the studies that we have done, I did present that at our conference last year, and we've taken that to jumpstart, and now we've indulged and really spread that thing, right? So I think the first thing is that before anybody makes a statement or before anybody says do this or do that, right? I think number one is that you have to make sure that what you're saying is accurate and is backed up by some stuff. You know, we can say, oh, this, and we can say that anecdotally, but it may not be a reality, right?
No.
You know what I'm trying to say? So that's kind of what we're going through.
And this is so hard to quantify.
Yeah, it is.
Because everybody's different.
Exactly. But right now this is probably one of the bigger research projects that we have been a part of. And like I said, there's 12 docs working hard. So what we're my vision is to basically come up with like a calculator, right? Okay, so you go online. There's like 10 questions. You answer them, and there's a high risk, medium risk, low risk, right? That doesn't mean that you're high risk.
Risk for what?
Just mortality, brain damage. Just major stuff, right? Just as getting hurt. Let's say not musculoskeletal wise, but more brain wise. Right?
Okay.
Does
So
that make
if you're
sense?
high risk at brain damage, medium risk at brain damage, low risk.
Something like that, right?
Okay.
And just because. So this is not to say, oh, you can't fight.
This
right?
is all preliminary. This
It's all in the works, right? But I want to create some tool that you can be like, let's say you're at a point in your career, like your last fight, and you're like, I remember I asked you. Remember I came here, and then I think I asked you, I'm like, well, are you doing this for a career or are you doing this for fun? Because I was like, because it looks like you got your shit together in your life, right? So, and then you're like, yeah, this was a test and this and that, right? And that's the question. Everybody may look. We have great examples of people who made it to the UFC from our community, and it's fucking awesome to see them fight, and it brings a sense of pride to all of us, and we're proud of you guys, so you keep doing what you're doing. But not everybody's going to make it to the UFC. And
vast majority won't.
And they're going to have a job. They're going to have a family, right? So there'll be a point, right, where you're like, well, should I do this? Should I not do this?
Is the juice worth the squeeze?
I want to give some tool that you can go at home in your room and be like, oh, it's shit. This is saying I'm high risk, right? Or this is saying I'm low risk, right? So at least give something, right?
Okay.
To help people. Or new docs, right? Like I've done, like I said, so many fights. So like I kind of know. I don't need to like the calculator. Like I just know, right? At this point, right? But a new doc, right? How does he know? How is he going to quantify that? Or a coach. Or if anybody, right? Anybody in this world. I want to create something like that at least gives something. Because right now you're just going based off of what somebody said.
Feel or see.
Yeah, right? Some of the things.
So you're trying to add a numerical value and try to like quantify something that's very difficult to quantify.
And it's not going to be like 85 or something. It'll be like one or two categories, right?
Yeah.
And I think the main thing is trying to identify the red line, right? Some of the things we found, or I found, were like if you're above 35, okay? At the age of 35, there's research that shows that your ability to heal is way less than when you're, and you know that. Everybody knows that.
Is that based on testosterone levels or what?
No, it's just your body's ability to heal. Like if you're 15 years old, right, and you fall off your bike, you're good 2 days later.
Yeah, but my question is more why.
Your body just can't. It's just older, man. You're growing, and you know what I'm saying. The cell, it doesn't work. Just like an old car, man. You're right. You know what I'm saying. It is what it is. So I think 35.
Father time is undefeated.
You can get dehydrated easier. It takes longer to.
Dude, I'll tell you right now. Weight cutting became harder.
That's what I'm saying.
Recovery.
Right?
I used to when I was 21, 22. We'd go do benders. We could go train.
Bro. You're fine, right?
Now,
some guy presented research about time for injury recovery, and it was like 35, and it does this. It just starts tanking, dude, right?
So not to say that hit 35 and
not to say that everybody at 35 is gonna happen to them, but that's a number, right? Okay, all right, right. So we found that out, right? We said like the lighter weight fighter, right? We found that like it was like the mortality was like 70% of them happened in the last round. Right? You get what I'm saying?
Wow.
A lot of them happen after round 7. right? You
This
see
is
what
the
I'm trying to
final shot.
you get the final shot, the last shot, right? So there's some stuff that we're finding, right? They had a concussion before. You know what I'm saying? So we're finding some things which are kind of like repetitive, right? Well, this keeps coming up. This keeps coming up. You know?
Is that it? So age, repetition.
Yeah, I have it. I got
concussions.
let me pull it up because I don't
Yeah,
want there's
weight
a lot.
class of the
So,
fighter.
look, so like 35 and above, okay, 126 pounds or less. We talked about that already, right? Early on in their professional career.
Wow, they have a higher mortality risk.
Yeah, because they don't know what they're doing, and it could be a mismatch. So a mismatch. So we looked at the winning percentage, right? So that was a part of it. Somebody who has a high winning percentage fighting somebody who has a low winning percentage, right?
At a higher risk
like
for
the guy called,
mortality.
hey, you want to fight? We've got to fight tomorrow, right? The guy's 5-0, knocked everybody out. Your record is 1-3, and you got knocked the F out like the last 3 times, right?
And
You
that
see what I'm trying to say?
makes-
right?
and that makes sense.
It's like it just makes sense, right?
You're putting
Okay.
in some guy that
Yeah.
should not be in there.
Exactly, right? If you've had 6 consecutive losses, if you've had 10 losses in your career, so like a losing record, right?
That astounds me that the consecutive losses, because I know guys that are journeyman losers. They're basically going out there to lose.
Yeah, they're tough guys. They can take a hit.
Yeah.
They'll do the rounds, right? They're gonna get hit.
They're trying.
They're trying. You're not gonna knock them out, right? But they're not gonna get knocked out, and they can go the rounds, right? That's a perfect person to put somebody in to get experience, right?
He was
Makes
a builder
sense?
fighter.
Exactly, right? 1 year of inactivity. You know what I'm saying? Anyway,
Wow,
so
inactivity matters.
yeah, that's what
I'll-
that's what the data says.
I'll ask you.
Yeah.
I'll tell you
Yeah.
why, because I've been
Yeah.
floating the
Yeah.
idea of possibly coming back for one.
Yeah.
But I've been
This-
inactive for
so
2 years now.
This is pure. This is not an emotional list, right? This is not a political list. This is based off of the data that we're looking at, right?
This is
and
what's
and now
happening.
we've taken some little data, and now we're looking at 4,000 articles to see if it's matching up. And if it does match up, then we can say this is what it is. Right now, this is preliminary stuff, right? But some of the topics and some of the things I brought up has been coming up again and again, right? So
Do you have any resistance to this sort of research? Like, have there been any groups that have been saying, like, what are you doing? This isn't science.
Nobody has done it. Is 100% science, right? This
Okay.
is all, like I said.
Because I know there's resistance to previous.
Yeah, I mean, reviewing 400 articles is no easy task,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
12 different doctors.
12 doctors, right? And these guys are all hardcore ringside physicians, so they're not going into it like, let's try to find some stuff so we can. You know, that's not the point. The point is just like, yo, what is the data showing? Let's figure this shit out,
let's look at
bro.
correlation.
Like, I've seen this, you've seen that, we've all seen this. This looks like it could be. Let's see if this is actually true. That's what we're trying to do. And that way we can develop something that there's something out there. Right now, like nothing, man. You know what I'm trying to say?
How did this start? Where was the impetus for this? Because you said you guys have been doing it for a year.
Basically, like, they asked me, all right, at our last conference.
Who's they? Forgive me.
So so I'm on the ARP, Association of Ringside Physician. So that's a global organization. We certify ringside physicians. So we have a program. You have to basically be experienced for 2 years. The commission has a vouch for you, right? Letters of rec. There's a test. The whole thing. It takes 2 years to do. So I'm certified, okay? And there's about maybe 100 of us in the whole world who are certified. Okay, we have a conference every year. We have meetings like every other month. Like, we'll all get on a Skype. We'll watch a fight. There'll be a panel. We'll go through the fight. We're like, yo, this happened, that happened. You know what I'm saying? Like, so we're throughout the year we're discussing. People are doing research. There's all kinds of stuff going on, right? So basically, it's a medical association for ringside physicians, right? So high risk fighters has always been this overwhelming topic. It's like, where do you even start, right? So they asked me, can you put something together? I've done some, presentations which were good. So they asked me, and I'm like, all right, bro, I'll do it, right? So anyway, so that's what I did. I looked at all of the research that we've already done, right? So I went through all the research that has already been done by other people, and I kind of put it all together. You get what I'm trying to say? So I go like, oh, this,
Aggregator of.
kind of aggregated it, and then looked at what I've, in my mind, right? You know what I'm trying to say? And kind of presented this. And then from this, we got some feedback, right? Like, no, yes, whatever, right? And then from there, we have a little bit of a base to kind of figure it out. Because I think it's an important thing to address, right?
Absolutely.
We're not, like I said, we love the sport, man. These guys love it. Like, when we have our conference, bro, it's like the funnest conference ever, bro. It's like 100 docs, all smart, right? I'm saying, talking fight game. Like, you know what I mean? It's amazing.
Everyone's just
It's hella
brown
fun.
out.
And the best part about it is, like, this guy's a family doc, this guy's an ER doc, this guy's a neurologist, this guy's a...
But you all have this similar
Yeah, and
passion.
everybody brings their specialty into the thing, right? You get what I'm saying? Orthopedic guy. Like, we were doing a conference, and the guy was doing jiu-jitsu moves, and they're like, yo, look, anatomically, this tendon is bending, this is bone is like, you know what I mean?
Down jiu-jitsu
crazy shit, right? You know what
physically.
I mean? Yeah, we went over like the physiology of choking, like all kinds of crazy stuff. Where we take what happens in the fight game and we put the science behind it, and everybody in their specialty can really go deep into it, and we learn stuff that's not in a textbook. Like this is not a damn textbook.
They say
bro.
every jiu-jitsu black belt is an anatomy.
Yeah,
expert.
and a lot of these like two of the guys are black belt jiu-jitsu, and they're doctors, so they know what the hell's
God
going
bless,
on.
God bless.
So they know what's going on, right? I don't know, like you know what I'm saying? Like I don't know how it feels. You know what I mean? Like I don't know, like you know what I mean? But they do, right? So that's the whole thing about this, and we're like I said, we're just trying to make the sport safer, but not take away from the competitiveness.
So then, what is the end goal of this initiative and this
project, right? This research.
Yeah, I guess project is a good word to describe.
just to try and come up with some things which across the board are pointing this in the same direction, right?
To what change, like the state athletic commissions, what they're looking for?
No, I mean I don't think so. No, I don't think.
Like, what's the outcome of this?
No, I don't
research?
think. I don't think we're trying. I don't think this is going to do anything with policy, right? But I think this is.
Why not?
But what I'm saying is that my focus is not that, right? My
Fair.
focus is to help the fighters, bro. Right? To help everybody. Be like, yo, listen, bro. Like, if you're not sure, just go. You don't have to talk to me or anybody.
But isn't that the logical next step? So like, though you're
we have. There has been a lot of things that the organization has done, which is now standard in Nevada, New York, and other commissions.
Yeah.
There definitely is, right? But what I'm saying is that my objective is not to do any. That's not my objective. If that happens, great. If it's good, right? But I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about the fighter who is a local guy, who doesn't have the resources, who doesn't have that.
May I make a comment?
Yeah.
You said earlier in this conversation that sometimes you have to protect the fighter from themselves.
Exactly.
Night of.
Yes, correct.
This research could be an extension of.
Exactly.
You are protecting the fighter from themselves in training.
Yes.
When you're not there,
That's
being
what I'm
their
saying,
physician.
man. That's
so
what I'm
like
saying.
I understand because, and if I'm wrong with this, tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah, I know.
I get the sense from you that like you're actively trying to do this balancing act between how can I protect you and get out of your way.
Yes,
like how
you got
can
it.
I
That's it.
be the guy that you need when you need him,
Yes, sir.
but not be the guy who hinders the fight, who hinders the
correct.
moment, who hinders the night.
I'm trying to see people get knocked out. Don't worry, man. Like you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like I don't want to exactly. That's not my role. That's not my role.
And that's fair. And that's kind of where my previous question of I truly feel like in some sense this job is almost an impossible task because you are trying to create a safe environment to do a incredibly dangerous act.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like I said to say that there's going to be no risk. That's just bullshit, right? But you can come up like with red flag stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like, listen, bro, like, come on, like you know what I'm saying? You can't do this, right? Or no, you got to stop, or you this and that, right? So that's what I'm saying. Because right now, it's just going off of what people say or what you think or
Anecdotal
whatever.
is not necessarily scientific.
Yeah. So if we do this research and all of the research says this is a risk factor. This is a risk factor. This is a risk factor. These 3-4 things we thought had nothing to do with this shit.
Yeah.
Throw it out, right? So that's what I want to get. Just the big points, the take-home message, right?
You just want truth.
That's it.
What actually matters.
What the hell is going on? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, really, everybody says a lot, and a lot of times when people are saying stuff, it's a bias, right?
Can I ask you a separate question? And if you don't want to answer this, you don't
That's
have
fine,
to.
yeah, man.
Are any of you guys being, like, compensated for this research?
No.
So this is all just...
No, bro. We're not doing this
You're
for
just
money,
doing
bro.
this stuff, and then you're compiling, like, let's say every year, all these ringside physicians are going Nevada, Montana, Missouri, Illinois, what have you. And then once a year, you guys get together, maybe twice a year, whatever, and you basically say, this is what I've noticed, this is what I've noticed, this is what I've noticed, this is what we're hearing from here, and you're just trying to compile a story. You know what's funny about anecdotal evidence? Anecdotal evidence in its... at the micro level means nothing, but at the macro level, that's science.
Yes, yeah, exactly. You know, and that's exactly what it is. None of us get paid for this. This is all voluntary, bro. But it's because we love it. You know what I'm saying? We're not fighters, right? We're doctors, right? But we love it. You know what I'm saying? And this is a way for us to be a part of it. And trust me, you want a ringside doc doing this research. You don't want some other guy who has no idea what he's talking about making a policy.
Or what they're looking for.
They're gonna do something that's gonna like mess it up, right? You need people who know what the hell is going on, who love it, and who are genuinely trying to help the situation, right?
It's as you said before, like in the 1980s, if you ask these
Yeah,
physicians,
no.
they would outlaw boxing
And
altogether
look,
because all of this is
some
dangerous.
of my colleagues have given lectures and people have walked out.
What do you mean?
Like they're given a talk about concussions and boxing and this and that, and they'll be like, "You can't be doing this," and they'll walk out.
Meaning, like, what are we?
We
what are
don't
talking
support
about?
this.
At all.
We're out. Like literally have walked out. You know what I'm saying? This is not the ringside docs. This is just the other people, right?
physicians
They're like,
in
what is this?
general.
How can you say this is okay? Like, how can you be the doctor for this, right? You know what I'm trying to say? So that's some attitude that you get, right? That we do get. But like I said, that's a very biased, ignorant type of position to take on anything in life, right? If you don't agree with it, okay, that's fine, right? But that doesn't mean don't figure out what's going on.
Yeah, you can't choose ignorance.
Especially in medicine, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, what boxing has been around at the like
300 years, 400
like,
actually
no,
longer.
it was
Pancrase back in the day.
Back in the day, bro, before even the Olympics started, they had boxing. So to say that this is going to go away is not, right?
It's human nature.
I mean, and the same thing, like people will be like, don't do this, don't do that. Like with your kids, right? There's some things you don't want them to do, right? Okay, well, you're probably gonna have to educate them about why, right? Let's not talk about it. Well, then they're gonna find out from the wrong way, right? You know what I mean? So that's
That's
what it is.
That's such a beautiful point because a lot of people sometimes think like something is incorrect, therefore we should just like stray from it, but they don't necessarily have the intelligence to articulate why it's incorrect.
Exactly, right? And that's, kids are like, why, right? That's what kids are always asking, why, right?
They're
So we got to
inquisitive.
educate people on why, right? You know what I'm saying? Not to say, oh, let's not talk about this or let's not even research that. Like we shouldn't be a part of that. Let's just worry about high blood pressure.
If
Like,
I'm
you know?
understanding this correctly from outside looking in, it
Yeah.
seems like what you're trying to do is you're trying to educate people and saying, hey, if you're wanting to get into boxing, mixed martial arts, jiu-jitsu, any sort of combative,
Yeah.
there are risks at play. All we are trying to do is extrapolate in the fullest context all the risks that could like when you buy cigarettes now, they say like
exactly.
could lead to
There you
lung
go.
cancer.
There you go. Exactly.
If you're doing boxing, could lead to brain
Yeah,
damage, could lead to all these
Yeah,
other things.
yeah.
Like we're just trying to educate you, the person who's partaking of all the good
Yes, that's correct.
and the bad.
That is correct. That's it. Because you guys are the ones who are doing it, right? I'm saying you guys should know, and most
And
people have
they're
no
going
clue.
to.
People find out after some bad shit happens,
And
right?
you're also talking to. I said this before and I'll say it again. There is something mentally unwell. I don't know if unwell is the correct answer.
Yeah.
There is something wrong with us because we are willing to get into a cage or a ring and cause bodily harm to one another, and it's just
But I mean, I've seen this sport save people's lives, literally.
yeah.
You know, and I've seen people become disciplined. I've seen kids who have anger issues, who have ADHD, who have all kinds of stuff going on, which they can channel their energy through this. So there is tremendous positivity because of this sport, right? And that's something that I have firsthand seen. People who don't see it or are not involved, maybe they don't see it, right? But every fighter I've met, for the most part, are really nice guys. Like they're not like this killer, like, you know what I'm saying, or whatever people imagine, right? There may be like that on the cameras are on, right? Because they have to sell tickets. But genuinely, they're good people. They're good guys. They like to fight. It is what it is. It's a type of sport. It's a way to express yourself, right? It's a beautiful way to express yourself sometimes. And there's great positivity in it. But at the same time, you should know what you're getting into. That's all, right? It doesn't mean that that's going to happen or it is going to happen or whatever. But obviously, you know, we learn about all kinds of things our whole life, right? About, well, if you do this, this could happen. If you do this, it's just part of it. But I feel like because of a lot of things that have happened, that research, that knowledge just was ignored, right? And now finally, it's coming together where we have a good group of people who are very passionate, who love combat sports, who love MMA, who love boxing, who love jiu-jitsu, all this stuff. They love it. They do it. They love it, right? And these are the people who are trying to figure this out.
God
And I think
bless.
that's the best people to figure this out because they're not going to be biased about, oh, look, I told you this has happened. You know, we're not doing that. We're like, yo, they just need to know the facts. That's it.
Have you ever read The Real
Yeah.
Anthony Fauci by RFK Jr.?
I haven't, but I heard I should read it. But
Good read.
No,
But there's something that he says that there's two extrapolations essentially between research. There's either the passionate of or the bought for.
There
And
you
that's
go.
why I asked you before, like, who's being compensated for
Yeah.
this. I will automatically have some sort of hesitancy towards any research that was bought and paid for
of course,
by
man.
someone.
Trust me.
Because
I'm
when
with
there's
you on
money
that.
involved,
Yeah.
there's
There's
a
always
push
a buy.
for.
Listen, man, if you want to prove something, you can find some shit that says it.
I can take any number and make
Yeah.
it say anything
Yeah,
that you're
and
want.
the more money you have, the more data you'll find to say that. I mean, it is what it is.
That's why I asked that question of like, if let's say there was a lot, I don't know, okay, hypothetically,
Yeah.
there's a lobbying firm that's trying to prevent boxing.
Yeah.
They're going to pay millions of dollars for a bunch
exactly.
of physicians
Yeah.
to find research that is conducive to the story they're trying to illustrate.
Yeah.
But if there's just a bunch of guys who are coming, and girls, forgive me,
Yeah.
a bunch of people that are coming together for a passion of the sport, a passion of the craft.
That's correct.
And all we're really trying to get behind is just an illumination or an extrapolation and just educate people.
That's it. That's
God
what,
bless.
That's what we're trying to do, man. That's about it, right? And I think that more education and more knowledge is always better, right?
Yes.
And I think,
Transparency.
like I said, I think that that's missing, right? You know what I'm saying? And people don't know what a concussion is. People don't know.
They don't know what
they're
they don't know.
supposed to do. People don't know, and they should know, right? Because, like I said, if these things happen, most of the time it's fine, right? But when you do the wrong thing after it happens, that's when you get in trouble. So you need to at least know what's happening first, right? And then once you know that, then you know what you need to do. Just like in anything, like if you're a football player and you break your arm, obviously you're not going to be in practice the next day. I mean, duh, right? You know what I'm saying? But the problem is that some of these symptoms may not be pain, right? So that's where it gets fishy, because you're like, no, I'm good, but you're not good, right? You know. So education is the key here. And it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful sport. You know, I've dedicated a lot. I'm not that old. I'm 39, but I've dedicated a lot of time. I've dedicated a lot of weekends, a lot of hours to this, right? Because I love it. It's not because of the money. It's not because of the being famous. It's none of that, right? I love it. This allows me to be a part of it, and it allows me to give back to it. And that's why I do it. And like I said, for me, it keeps the fire alive. When I'm sitting ringside Saturday night at Shamrock, or a boxing gig, or wherever, you know what I'm saying? We got a lot of good promotions down in St. Louis,
Yeah, it's growing.
For me, it just gives me that release in a healthy way, right? You know what I'm saying? I feel it. You know what I'm saying? Sitting there, I have adrenaline going too, even though I look like a poker face, but
You're a fan.
I still feel that, right? But you have to balance being a fan and the doctor, right? Of
course.
So what I'm saying is that I am a fan of the sport. When I'm working, I'm the doctor. So you have to separate that a little bit, right? But what I'm saying is the feeling that I get, it just keeps that fire alive, right? And a lot of people you see, and I saw that, when I was working, I see a lot of these doctors who are like, in their 50s, and they're like pissed off every day at work, always complaining. They're like, oh, this, that, and the third, they're raising their hand at the meetings. But the management knows he's going to retire in about 70 years. He ain't going to do nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like, and he knows it too. Like, he's like, damn, I'm stuck, right? And I realized really early on, like, I can't be that guy. I cannot be that guy. You know what I'm saying? And I got to be my own man. I got to do my own thing, and I got to be by my own rules, man. And we're gonna keep it flowing. And maybe it'll be harder. Yeah, probably will be. You know what I'm saying? But you know what? I'm gonna go at it by my own terms. And that's what I think about the sport, is that it's a beautiful thing, man. And we just want to be a part of it and help you guys out. That's it.
Dude, we have gone down many rabbit holes. And one of the questions I wanted to ask you, and forgive me, earlier in the conversation, you were talking about how you went to medical school at LSU.
Yeah.
And that you did your residency in Louisiana. And that's kind of how you got yourself inundated with the combatives world.
Yeah.
How the hell did you end up in Missouri?
Yeah. So my family's from St. Louis. Okay. So I grew up in St. Louis. Yeah. So I'm a St. Louis boy,
And then you went out of town for school.
Exactly.
Okay.
Right. So so my whole family's here. Right. And, as a physician, I knew that St. Louis was a good place for physicians. So I have good role models. A lot of my, my dad's friends and the community members, they're doctors. So I knew that it was a very good place to be a doctor. And I always wanted to come home. I love St. Louis. If you're from St. Louis, you come back most of the time, right? You know what I mean?
Homesick.
That was always the plan. My family's in business, and there was a foundation already there for me to go. So I didn't want to go to a different city and you know what I mean?
Start over.
I kind of knew my stuff, and I was very active in college, made a lot of good connections. So I went and did what I had to do. I had to get out of St. Louis to focus on what I needed to get done to become a physician with residency and all that. It's not easy, in medical school. So I got all that shit done basically, and then came back, right? And then basically once I was coming back, I was still going to Louisiana quite frequently to do fights, right? But anyway, long story short, I was like, all right, man, I got to get in here now, and I'm back home, so I got to try to get in the fight game here. So, I looked up the commission, this and that.
So you never really tried to use the networking that you developed in Louisiana?
So what happened? This is what happened.
Oh,
right?
forgive me, sorry.
So I emailed Tim. I found out, Tim's a guy, right? So I emailed him. I'm like, hey,
Tim Lukanoff.
Tim Lukanoff. So I emailed him and I was just like, hey, I'm Dr. Munshi. I'm a ringside physician. I'm with ARP. I'm moving back. Yada yada yada. Right? You know what I'm trying to say? Just cold email.
Left on
right?
red.
You know what I'm saying? No. So he emailed me back. Right? And he was like, yeah, hey, what's up, man? Blah blah blah. Come to the next show. Anyway, long story short, he called the commissioner in Louisiana.
No shit.
And then they vouched for me. That's it,
They gave you the
They
credentials
basically like,
you
nah,
needed.
Munshi's good, bro. You know what I'm saying? So he talked to them, and obviously they vouched for me. And
Forgive me, just time frame. So 2016
That's
you
it,
started.
26.
2018 you got into the associated physician,
ARP,
ringside physician.
Yeah, ARP.
When did you move back to Missouri?
It was five. Let's see here, 13, 14, 15 season. I think 2018-ish.
So roughly that same
Something
time.
like that. Yeah.
And then how long from
18,
when you
19.
moved back to Missouri till you emailed Tim? Tim said, "All right, come to this show."
First fucking day, bro.
No shit.
I'm like, yeah, no. I mean, like my like I said, my really quick. You know what I'm saying? Because once I was leaving Louisiana, I was like, shit, man. Like I kind of got to the top of the game over there, right? Like I'm doing, big fights. I've done Teofimo Lopez, Donita Donaire, like big names. You know what I'm trying to say? So I was like, man, I'm gonna feel like weird if I don't do this anymore, and I can't keep flying to Louisiana every week, right, to do fights, right? So, and then you have to be active, right? If you just come up once in a while, then you need
It's like a
somebody
muscle. You
yeah,
gotta keep
exactly,
it in
right?
repetition.
So I was like, yo, I gotta do this. So I emailed Tim, and then basically he's like, come, and I think the first time was like I came to a Shamrock show, just to kind of follow people around, and then basically once I got here, I think that people realized like, oh, this guy has done this a lot. You know what I'm saying? Like he's done this, like he knows what he's doing, and he's up there. And then you get then I
Who was the physician when you came to Shadow?
Oh, man,
Was
I
it
forgot his name, man.
Was it the last name like Lovelace?
I totally forgot his name, man.
Oh, okay.
I totally forgot. He's a good guy. So anyway, so I came and like I showed up. I shadowed every time. I was like, yo, where are you guys at? I'll come for free. I don't care. I'll come. So I just kept coming. I kept coming.
That's the
I'm like,
easiest
I'm
way to
getting
get a
in here,
call.
man.
Free?
I'm getting in, right? So at any time they had a show, I was like, I'll show up. So I showed up to a bunch of them, right? And then after that, you get a show, and you get in there, and people like how you operate and how you run business and how you do your thing, and that's all it is. I just put my head down, and nothing is beneath me. Like I always say, like I showed them that I'm ready to do the work. I let them know that, hey, yo, this is a priority, right? This is not, I'm doing this for fun. I'm like, this is a priority in my career to be a ringside physician. This is not some side thing that I'm just doing for fun.
How do you navigate that though? Because like we were talking about the finances and all this, and obviously this is not something that pays the bills. So how do you navigate something where it's like the financial responsibility is relatively low,
Yeah.
but the passion is relatively high. But obviously you're, a new father, a new husband at this point in your life. I don't know how long you've been married, forgive me, but I know that you are married and you have kids. So it's like you have the responsibility of like yourself as a father, as a husband, as a man, but you also have the passions in your life. So like, how do you say that this is like a priority to you when, the check at the end of the night wouldn't necessarily dictate that?
Well, I mean, that's a great question. In the beginning, I think maybe that was, honestly, I didn't care, man. I don't care. Like, I was like, this is what I want to do. I don't care what I have to, what price I have to pay to do this. I'm a physician. I'll be fine. My wife's a physician. We'll be okay. Like, you know what I'm trying to say? It's not like it's going to hinder
Affect
something.
you
You know what I'm trying to say? Like, I'm giving up a weekend
But it's
or
the
something.
time, right? So like
Yeah.
oftentimes when I talk to like highly, I have to be careful how I say this. When I talk to men of affluence or like at a certain level, what they all share in common is that their time is their highest commodity, right?
Yeah.
Their most prized commodity.
This is
so you're giving up your time.
Yeah. So what I'll say is this, is that there's some days, right, where I will work. I'll go to work. I'll wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'll get to work at 6:30. I will work probably till 3 or 4. I'll come home. I'll take a shower and I head to the casino to do the fight. So I don't care. I'll wake up earlier. I don't care how many. I don't care. I'll make it work. I got 24 hours of the day. It'll be enough to do both.
God bless.
So that's what I do, and I gotta say thank you to my wife for putting up for me dipping the whole day, and she's been very supportive. So definitely have to give her credit for allowing me to do
course,
that.
the partner in
But
your
what I'm
life.
saying is that I got this opportunity and I got this opportunity. Well, I'm gonna do both. How am I gonna do it? Okay, this is what I gotta do. What does that mean? That means I gotta go to bed at 9 o'clock the day before. I gotta make sure I sleep really well. I gotta wake up early so I get my work done. I gotta eat some good meals so I don't get hungry. And I time management. But a lot of times it's like going to work, going to this hospital, that hospital, going to the weigh-in, come home. You know what I'm saying? And then it's like repeat. So I work a lot, right? But I can do it, is what I'm saying. Is I've trained my body and I've trained my mind that if I have to, some days, just imagine if I woke up at 5 and I do a show and I get home at 1 o'clock in the morning. that was my day, you know. But I've been able to do it. I know I can do it, and whatever, you know what I'm saying. It doesn't affect my ability to do a good job either place. I'll get it done.
Your cognitive ability to handle the stress is not necessarily inhibited because you're doing something you're passionate about.
That's correct. And the thing is that just if you're doing something, even like as a physician or any profession, right? I sometimes even treat myself like an athlete in the sense that you have to rest, you have to eat right, you have to exercise. If you do all these things, then you're able to do these long days. But if you're not sleeping, you're eating like crap, you're not exercising, you're stressed out, then it's gonna blow up, right? You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So I'll know, like, all right, this is fight week, I got to do this, so I'll do this, and I'll rearrange it, and I'll just make sure that the work gets done, so I can do both, right? So I was so passionate about it that I was gonna do whatever it took. And Tim, I think Tim realized that, right? Like he's not gonna stop, right? You know what I mean? He's gonna do whatever.
Tim's
it takes.
a workhorse.
And I
too,
told
man.
Tim, I'm like, listen, I told him, I remember an email, I was like, listen, this is a priority. Like, you tell me what, where, and when. And like I said, I do the weigh-ins, I do the physicals the day before, right? So I'm pretty much sacrificing 2 days, right?
2 nights.
Yeah,
back
because
to back.
it's not like I get paid more to do it, but I'm like, yo, this is way better for everybody, right? Like, everybody, let's say that there is something going on, right? Well, at least now we have time to like see if we can get it fixed, or if we have to find a replacement, right? If an hour before the fight you're like, this guy can't fight, then this is a fiasco, right? You get what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And during the day of the fight, you don't want to have people doing the physical, like getting your hand. There's too much shit going on.
You don't want too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah, there's too much shit going on the day of the fight, right? You know what I'm saying? So like, I'll go the day before, and like, luckily, since we're kind of make our own schedule, I can be like, the weigh-ins at 3:00 on Friday. I'm like, cool, I'll be there, right? So I'll just go earlier, or I'll go after, or whatever. I'll fit it into my schedule, right? So it's not like I'm on the clock and somebody's watching me clock in and out, that I have to stay in the hospital till 5:00. Well, I can just go before or after, as long as the work is done, I'm okay, right? So I have that flexibility where I can do this and squeeze it in, right? And all the fights are at night, you know what I'm saying? They're not like in the middle of the day, right? So
Can I ask a different question?
Yeah.
Because you were talking about like the amount that your wife has to kind of accept.
Yeah.
And that you thank her and that you're very fortunate to have her. There seems to be, this will be the 44th episode of Easy Talk, but there seems to be a correlation between men and happiness and success also catered to the fact that they are in a healthy relationship.
yeah, no, I think that if you want to be, to be successful, you're going to have a strong partner by your side that supports you, that allows you to go chase your dreams, and understands that really means something to him, right? You know what I'm saying? And when it becomes like a competition, sometimes I see people in marriages which is like a competition. I'm like, how is that going to work? I mean, that's not going to work. You know what I'm saying? Like, you need to like synergize together.
Well, there's healthy competition.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying? Like, you're trying to
if
one
it
up
seems
each other.
combative.
Yeah, you're trying to one up each other.
That's
like,
a divorce in the
That's
making.
not the point. The point is that you're bringing this to the table. I'm bringing this to the table. We're going to combine this, and we're going to grow.
We're pooling resources.
Yeah, and then we're going to excel.
We're in this together. We're a team now.
Exactly. We're going to.
Your win is my win. My win is your win.
That's correct. Of course, there's going to be differences. Of course, there's going to be fights. Of course, stuff's going to happen. That happens every thing. But at the end of the day, if you're together, united, and are going to make a better life for your family, your kids, and you understand that that's why you're doing this, then I mean, I think that's the take-home message. I think that's what helps, right? So, of course, I mean, if I'm gone to work all day and I do a fight and I'm gone all day, obviously, it can be irritating sometimes, right? You know, but she understands that how much I love it. She understands all the work that I'm doing for this, and she knows that it keeps me happy, right? And she knows that this is a passion. She's understands that this is a passion, right? And a lot of guys have passions which aren't very healthy, right? I mean, this is a great, healthy passion that I really get to give back. You know what I mean? So it's a way for me to be a guy. It's a way for me to express myself. It's a way for me to give back. It's a way for me to be a part of the community. And I get that release, even though I've maybe worked the whole week, 12-hour days every day. But I go there and I'm like, you know what I'm saying? When I come home, like, yeah, man, that was tight. I've had
the discussion with my wife because ever since we got married, I even told her I've said this story many times. When I proposed to her, I was like, if you're wanting a 9-to-5 guy, if you're wanting a guy that's going to be the home every evening and every weekend, I was like, say no to me. Because I'm not going to be that guy.
Yeah. No, it's hard.
But if you want to see how far we can go together,
there we go,
if
buddy.
you're willing to work with me, say yes.
And,
She said yes.
And as a band too, you have to prove yourself, right? You can't just be, I'm gonna do
Brother,
this, I'm gonna do that.
you
You
have
gotta,
no idea how
you
right
gotta,
you are.
you gotta do something.
If I was
right?
eating
Like, you know
shit
what I mean?
every day, my
Like,
wife is be like, all right,
you know?
relax.
So like you gotta earn that respect. You gotta earn that and show them, you know?
Well, I would make the argument that like the respect was already shown and earned. That's why she's my wife. It's
Fair
not like
enough,
she's
yeah.
my wife and then I
Yeah.
have to show her
No, but
that she needs to respect.
But I
and-
get what you're saying. Like,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
like
she knew what she was signing
you
up for.
gotta have a track record, right?
Yeah,
You can't
absolutely.
just expect it. Like,
What's the difference between a genius and an idiot? Success.
Yeah, fair enough.
If
yeah.
you fail, you're an idiot. If you succeed, you're a genius.
But you get what I'm saying, man. You know?
Absolutely, absolutely. We've done a lot of discussion on like past and present.
Yeah.
But I briefly do want to discuss the future because
Yeah.
I want to know that obviously you're working on this project that you guys
Yeah.
are working on for the next at least 2 to 3 years, right? What is the goal with that, and what is the goal with you as a ringside physician? Do you want to like be the state athletic lead one day, or do you want to maintain the medicinal side?
Yeah.
Like, what is your goal?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that in the arena of combat sports, I always want to be a ringside physician because, sometimes you may move up the ranks, but then you're not doing what you love anymore.
Yeah, you're not
Like,
in the weeds anymore.
I want to be on the ground. You know what I mean? I want to be on the front lines. So I always want to do that. Like what I'm doing now, I want to hopefully continue to do that until I cannot do it anymore physically. Right? You know what I mean? And I'm a St. Louis boy, so I'm going to be here, right? And
God
I'm
bless.
young. I'm 39, so we got some gas left in the tank, right? So I definitely want to do that, right? But I do think that I see a lot of these older docs, right, who have been doing this for 30 years, 40 years. I call them the OG docs. You know what I'm saying?
Thank you. But
And I aspire I want to continue to gain knowledge. And with more experience, with more time, with more research, I will become more knowledgeable, right? I mean, that's how it works. So I want to keep doing that. And then hopefully later on in life, if things work out, I would like to take on maybe a more of a leadership position with the ARP, right? You know what I'm saying? And being able to dedicate more time to the sport, all right, of combat sports in any way, shape, or form, right? But I always do want to continue to be the ringside doc who's there at the fights, right? But there's many other ways, right? There's people who are the doctor for the WBC, there's people who are the team doctor for bare knuckle boxing or the UFC or PFL or whatever, right? Obviously, there's fights that are going overseas now, right? You know what I'm saying? Maybe they need some docs to go over there to train the docs. There's, anything that's really involved in educating and really trying to educate people on the stuff that we have learned, because you can't just hold it all to yourself. Like, this information needs to go to people, and I think that if we can do that, then I think that we can develop a gold standard, right? Everything is a gold standard, right? There's this, there's that. But if we can develop a gold standard on how to practice ringside medicine, right? And if I can be a part of that, any way, shape, or form, that's what I want to continue to do. And if I can have, a bigger role on a leadership, position, then yeah, if it comes and it's the right time. But I do think that I want to make sure that I am qualified for that position, right? I don't want to do it just, I'm this and I'm that, right? I want to make sure I'm the right guy for the job at the right time, and that really will be impactful. I also want to make sure that I can dedicate time. Right now, I'm really busy, with what I'm doing. But I think as the years go by, I think I will have more time if things go as planned, right?
Yeah.
And then I can dedicate more of my time to that, right? So I don't know what's going to happen, but I want to maintain to be a ringside physician, and I definitely want to continue to work with the ARP and continue to move up the ranks, right? And like I said, some of these OG docs, I'm like, man, this guy has been doing this for 40 years. He not only knows what happened, right? But he knows this guy 20 years later and what happened after 20 years. I don't know that. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what's going to happen to these fighters after 20 years. But these guys know because they saw it. They were
They've
there.
seen before, during, and after.
That's what I'm saying. So that's what I want to maintain. And then when I get to the end of let's say the end of this career, many, many, many years from now, well, then the knowledge I have is going to be great. It's going to be very knowledgeable, right? And I think using that to continue to help. You can't read a book and get that.
No.
That's just by living
That's
life
the
and doing
difference
what you're
between
doing, right?
intellect and wisdom.
So I want to be one of those guys who I can sit down and like people can ask me and they'll be like, this is it, and people are like, yeah, he knows what he's talking about, right? But I don't want to. I want to know what I really want to know. I really want to get to the bottom of this, right? Not because of any other reason, but just because I just want to understand all this science behind what's going on, the risks, the benefits, whatever, right? Like, I just want to be one of those guys that really understands it for myself, and I want to give that back to the MMA and boxing world. That's what I want to do. Now, how do I do that? Who knows, right? But I'm sure I'll figure it out. If I figured it out so far, right?
I'm going to tell you the same thing I told Tim Lukanoff, and I'm just going to say that when I was a fighter, my fixation was mostly internally.
Yeah.
My performance, my weight cutting, and all these things. And I was always aware of ringside physician, the state athletic commission, people like Jerry and Matt, and all these guys, and obviously Tim Lukanoff. But now that I've taken a step away, I kind of get this bird's eye view of it, and I kind of get a better sense of the lay of the land, both internally and externally. And all I'm going to say to you is the same thing I told Tim, man. I can speak for all fighters when I say thank you so much.
Yeah, appreciate it,
because, man. You know, you do have to save us from ourselves. I can attest to this wholeheartedly. And as long as we have guys that are doing it for the right reasons, for a passionate reason, for the love of the sport, the craft, or just for the love of the, you know, like you have a respect and admiration for the fighters, so you want to protect them from themselves. I think there are many correct avenues to approach this and very few negative ones. And it's just you said it off record, but I'm going to say it on record. I don't think we understand how lucky we are as athletes in St. Louis and Missouri as a state to have Tim Lukanoff as the state athletic commission lead.
Absolutely.
And then some of the people that we have in the state athletic board, and then obviously to the ringside physicians, to the people that work the events. Every interaction I've ever had with any of you has always been like this overwhelming respect and admiration and love for the fighters, with this like underlying of respect and passion for what it is that you were there to do. Because you've never forgotten. You guys love the moment. You guys love watching the fights as much as all of us.
Yeah.
But there's never been a moment where I felt like you guys forgot that you're like doing a job.
Absolutely.
So from one fighter who's escaped the sport, I just want to say, dude, thank you very much.
No, thanks, man, for sure. Thanks for having me, man. It was great. This is awesome.
Thank you for being on the podcast.
Absolutely, buddy.